Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Enjoy the fanfic and let's begin part 1. A woman walked down the Konoha Streets road. She had just come from a small get-together with her best friend Anko Midarashi, or the famed snake mistress of Konoha. She had on a hard glare across her face while some of the men around the village leered at her. Her gaze was cold, but how could it not be? She hated perverts and the like. She was in her mid-ends while her red eyes showed the unrelenting coldness. She went by multiple names. People called her the Genjutsu mistress, the untouchable woman, and her personal favorite, the Ice Queen of Konoha. Her name was Kurenai, and she was currently walking back to her apartment. She ignored the glances of the male population while she brushed her hair. Sigh, why did I stay out so late with Anko? Man, she can drink now. I have a headache, Kurenai said as she rubbed her head. She hadn't really drunk so much as her friends since she was never much of a drinker to begin with, but she still felt the after effects of the alcohol. Kur and I continued to walk towards her apartment while mentally cursing Anko for persuading her to go for a drink with her. But those thoughts were immediately put to rest when she saw a multitude of people come out of a dark alley. She might have been slightly drunk, but even she could get serious even if she was under the influence of alcohol. Kurenai raised an eyebrow as she saw them run away fast. But she also saw that they had weapons in their hands. Kurenai, being curious, walked into the dark alley and after a few seconds she widened her eyes. She saw a blonde boy around the age of 6 on the ground with his body torn and beaten. Kurenai narrowed her eyes as she carefully flipped him over and slowly checked his pulse. She was so happy he was alive, but just barely. She noticed the whisker marks on his face and widened her eyes again. She was staring at Naruto Uzumaki, or as she knew, the container of the Kaibi no Yoko. Kurenai knew about Keilu. She remembered how she wanted to fight with her father to stop it from destroying the village, but she and her friends were too young, so they couldn't go. It was one of Kurenai's most memorable moments. Even if she didn't like it, Naruto winced at her touch, but slowly calmed down while Kurenai clenched her right fist. She might not have seen Na that much, but she didn't hold anything to the blonde. More or less, she felt sorry for him and having to carry such a burden. He's only 6 and they do something like this. Hokage-sama, is this really the village we all fight to protect? Kurenai wondered as she slowly picked up the blonde boy and walked him towards the hospital. She wasn't about to let him die like this. Kurenai could feel something when she touched him. A small feeling that made her drop her cold gaze for a bit. People watched the Ice Queen of Konoha, the famed demon brat, to wherever she was going, and most scowled and whispered things that didn't fail to enter her ears. Kurenai turned to the people talking and glared at them, making them all shut their mouths while she continued walking. Some people wanted to smack the demon brat out of her hands. But people knew that she might have been a tunin. But Kurenai was quickly gaining a reputation even with amongst the Jon and shinobi. So all the civilians backed off and allowed the woman to run towards her destination. Somewhere else he was known as a lot of things. He was called the god of shinobi, the professor. And besides the Nadim Suchi Kage, he was the oldest Hokage in office to date. His name was Serbi Hirozen and he was walking down Konoha streets enjoying a nice walk. He was on his way to Naruto's house to check up on the blonde. Serbi wondered what he was up to and simply decided to surprise Naruto with his arrival. Hai continued to walk as he greeted the citizens of Konoha before he heard a yell along with a sharp rise in key. What do you mean you won't help him? Someone yelled and Sarobi turned around to see the noise came from the hospital that Konoha was slightly famous for. Wondering what the problem was, Serbi walked towards the building and hoped that whatever happened he could resolve it peacefully and with no conflicts. He entered the door and saw Kurana at the front desk, and he was about to intervene before he looked a little lower and saw the Genjutsu mistress holding a beaten Naruto in her hands. Satobi widened his eyes and quickly ran to the front desk, surprising both the receptionist and Kurani at the same time. Narkan, Serati said as he looked over the passed-out blondes, bruises, and injuries. Saratobi narrowed his eyes and his ki completely suppressed Kurnis, making all the staff members drop their things. Get him a doctor right now, Saratobi ordered. And knowing how people were with the Hokage, the receptionist quickly agreed, and immediately a small team of medical nin took the blonde and started to heal his injuries while Kurana and Sarobi sat near the window to make sure no one tried anything with Na, which Sarobi knew might happen while Kurani had a woman's hunch that it could happen. As they watched the medics work on Na, Sarobi leaned forward and rested his chin on his arms while looking at the blonde. What happened, Kurani? Hai asked, making his voice strangely calm, but Kurenai knew better. She could tell that Serbi was angry and he was ready to lash out at the first thing that he directed his gaze on. Meanwhile, Kurenai narrowed her eyes and sat in an upright position as she felt the alcohol leave her body, with her becoming more and more sober. I don't know it all, Hokage-sama. I saw about 10 people come out of a dark alley and they ran off immediately. I thought it was strange, so I investigated and saw Naruto on the ground beaten. I rushed him to the hospital. I demanded that they heal him, but people said that they had too many people to take care of and couldn't tend to him at the moment since they were understaffed. But I knew it was a lie because I saw the other doctors and nurses taking their time and writing documents. So, I was angry, Kurani explained. And Suobi gritted his teeth. His hands clenched upon each other as he tried to get his anger under control. Kurenai sighed and turned to Serbi. He's only 6. How could they do that to him? Kurenai asked, and Hirozen wasn't even sure how to answer that question even if he was called the professor. It's all my fault. I should have watched him better. I can't believe it got to this point, Serbi said. And Kurenai sighed. She had been guilty of not paying Na much attention either. Where are his parents? Kurenai asked, and Sarutobi shook his head before rubbing the bridge of his nose with his fingers. He doesn't have any. He's an orphan, but I was told how he was treated back at the orphanage. Sai tired to see if he would be okay on his own, Serbi said. And Kurenai's hair covered her eyes. If one looks closely, they would see that her red eyes showed anger and slight resentment. How was he treated in the orphanage? Kurenai asked, wondering if she would dread that question. Saratobi sighed. And while they watched the medic work, he told Kurina the entire story. Needless to say, Kurina had to keep all of her ki under control and not go straight to the orphanage and put everyone under a strong genjutsu that would leave them with mental trauma for years. He was only a child as they did all that to him. They isolated him from other kids. They still ignored his needs. He was given a pathetic excuse for a bed. And he was barely given any food. This was unacceptable. And you thought it was okay for him to live on his own. He's 6, Kurenai yelled out, shocking Sarobi. Hai narrowed his eyes and glared at the Chunin woman. There wasn't much I could do at the time. Serbi yelled back while Kurenai looked at Narut. Why couldn't he be adopted by anyone? Kurenai asked, and Serbi sighed while looking at Na also. They saw the blonde's breathing ease. After a while, they calmed down and Kurani sat back down looking at the ground. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, she said, knowing she showed disrespect to her village's leader and her leader as well. Serbi gave a small smile and shook his head. No, you're right, Kurenai. The council breathed down my neck about Naruto, and it was hard to come to a solution to it all. I know I probably made the wrong choice, Serbi said, and Kurenai mentally nodded in agreement with him, but she could tell he was regretting it. You're the Hokage. If you did something, they couldn't stop you. Don't you know that, Hokage-sama? Kurenai asked, and Serbi nodded. He did know that, but he knew that people's hatred was a dangerous thing, and he didn't know what family would be put in that line of fire just for being Naruto's adoptive parents. It's complicated, Kurenai-san. So, I'd rather not say, Serbi said, and Kurenai was visibly losing her patience as she wanted answers. She wasn't sure why she cared so much about the blonde, but this whole thing left a bad taste in her mouth when she kept hearing about all the things that happened to Na. He didn't deserve this. None of this was his fault, and she knew it. She was mad. Mad at Konoha for being this was to a 4-year-old boy. Mad at her Hokage for allowing this to happen, and mad at herself for being a part of that group that ignored him. She should have realized it. Naruto was the male version of Anko. Her best friend had the same childhood when she was betrayed by Orochimaru. She was given almost the same treatment and still had to deal with most of it. Kurenai felt ashamed of herself for not seeing it all this time and looked at the ground. He's got no one taking care of him, right? Kurenai asked, and Serbi nodded. He turned to her and saw Kurenai look at Na with absolute conviction and resolve in her eyes. Then I'll take care of him from now on. Hokage-sama. I would like to adopt Naruto. He needs parents, and I refuse to see him like that again. It will be tough, but I'll do it, Kurenai said. And Serbi widened his eyes at the Genjutsu mistress. She wanted to adopt Naruto. Kurenai, think about this. You're a shinobi, and I don't think it would be wise to. Serbi stopped when he saw Kurenai's eyes. The fire burning in him that showed no room for discussion, even if he was her Hokage. Saratobi widened his eyes as Kurenai gave him a pleading look. The Hokage sighed and thought it over. He knew things couldn't stay with Naruto, and maybe the blonde would be better if he had someone capable to look after him. He couldn't really see anything wrong with Kurenai doing it, since even if few women her age had children when they were that young. Are you sure about this, Kuren-san? You will have a lot to do. Serbi said, and Kurenai looked back at Na. She knew next to nothing about the blonde, but she felt her heart tighten when she heard of all the things that happened to him. In her mind, it just wasn't fair for the blonde to have to experience that. I'm sure, Hokage-sama. I'll manage with him. I always wanted company, Kurenai said, and Serbi chuckled, drawing the Ice Queen's attention to him. I never thought you would be so open, especially with how most of Konoha talks about you, Serbi said. And Kurenai gave a small smile. I suppose so. Don't ask why though, Hokage-sama. Kurenai responded, and the Hokage laughed with a nod. He normally wouldn't cry into anything if it wasn't life-threatening, so he left it alone before sighing. Take care of him, Kurenai-san. He's been through a lot, Serbi said, and Kurenai nodded with a smile. She could honestly say that she was looking forward to having Na. I know he has, Hokage-sama, but I'll raise him, right? Kurenai said, and Serbi nodded. He was sure that Kurenai would do a good job for the blonde. A few hours later, Na groaned as he woke up and looked at the ceiling. He didn't remember much of what happened, or maybe he didn't want to remember. The blonde covered his eyes and cried at his misfortune. Why was he hated? What did he do that people hated him for? Na could only cry his distress away. But soon he felt a small side of his bed support something other than him, and the blonde opened his eyes to see Kurana staring at him with a gentle smile on her face. "Hello, Naruto," Kurenai said, and the blonde looked at her for a bit. Kurenai could tell he was confused. She could understand that much, and she knew he had every right to be confused. "Who are you?" Na asked, and Kurenai continued to smile. "I'm Kurenai here. If you want, you can call me Kasen," Kurenai said, and Naruto seemed even more confused, but Kurenai didn't mind it at all. "Naruto, I know what they did to you, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. You didn't deserve any of that. Hokage-sama allowed me to adopt you. It might be confusing now, but you'll understand someday. For now, I want you to know that I'm here for you," Kurenai said, and Naruto stared at her. He almost couldn't believe his ears when she said that. He almost hoped it wasn't a dream when she spoke to him like that. "Why would you want to help me?" the blonde asked, and Kurenai was more than happy to respond to his question. "Because I care about you. I promise I'm not lying when I say this to you. Trust me, Naruto," Kurenai said as she grabbed Na into a gentle hug. The blonde seemed stunned by her offer and felt overwhelmed, but at the same time very happy. For some reason, he could feel she was telling the truth, and he believed her. It felt good to have someone say that to him after all he had been through. Na slowly raised his arms and hugged his new adoptive mother and cried like it was a dream. Kurenai smiled and let down her cold gaze since she had no need for it with her new son. "Is it really all right if I call you Kasen? I mean, our hair color is so different and so are our eyes." Kurenai placed a finger over Naruto's mouth and simply continued to smile. "Don't worry about those details, Naruto. You're my new son and I'll take care of you. I might not know a lot, but I know I can help you," Kurenai said, and Naruto smiled. The blonde crashed into Kurenai again and showed his smile to his mother. "Ka-san. Thank you," Naruto said, and Kurenai smiled again. It warmed her heart to see Na so happy for a change. "All right, then you get some more sleep. I'll be right in that chair if you need or want me," Kurenai said as she took a chair near the window. Naruto yawned and went back to sleep while Kurenai turned out the lights. She slowly drifted off to sleep also as she folded her arms around her body and plopped on leg over the other in her chair. 2 days later, Kurenai shook Na awake and the blonde groaned as the sun shined on his face while Kurenai took in his appearance. So much happened last night, but she didn't care at all. "Wake up, Naruto. It's time to go," Kurenai said, and the blonde slowly opened his eyes. He turned to see his adoptive mother in front of him, and Na smiled as he yawned. "Good morning, Khan," Na said, and Kurenai nodded. "Good morning, Naruto. Are you ready to leave?" Kurenai asked, and Naruto nodded. He had spent the last 2 days resting his body, and it amazed Kurenai that he was already better, but she knew it was from Kyuubi and its healing abilities. "Yaka-san, I'm ready to leave, Dado," Naruto said, and Kurenai raised an eyebrow at the last word, but it seemed to be kind of cute, so she didn't mind it at all. "All right then, let's get you signed out," Kurenai said as she took her son's hand, and the two left the hospital room. Naruto was more than happy to leave the hospital as he had always hated it there. He felt that they were always out to get him, but he felt much better with Kurenai with him. After signing her son out, Kurenai took Naruto through the village, and almost immediately they drew attention as most of Konoha went wide-eyed. They saw Kurenai, the Genjutsu mistress and ice queen of Konoha, holding the demon's hand with a sure smile on her face. People were stunned at the scene. Some women called Kurenai demon lover, but it didn't matter at all to the woman. She was happy with her new son. Naruto felt the stares on them and it unnerved him slightly as he unconsciously moved behind Kurana as if he was trying to hide, making the Genjutsu mistress smile. Naruto, what are you doing? Kurenai asked and the blonde gave an embarrassed smile. Everyone staring at us Kassen, Na said and Kurenai nodded, but she didn't care. Not in the least of what people thought before she smirked. So you care about what they think instead of being with me? Kurenai asked and Na panicked. No Carson eat sort of weird Na said and Kurenai nodded. Well it won't matter soon cause you'll be with me from now on. Kurenai said and Na couldn't help but agree with her. Soon Kurenai's first test came up as a John and narrowed his eyes at her and stepped forward. Kurenai and Naruto stopped in front of the man as the Ice Queen narrowed her eyes at him while he spoke. What do you think you're doing with that thing? The Jonin asked, and Kurenai's gaze got colder while she tightened her grip on Naruto's hand. The blonde looked at his mother while the citizens of Konoha whispered to each other. 1. Don't you dare call my son a thing, and 2. What I do with my son is none of your business, Kurenai said, shocking everyone who heard her. The Jonin narrowed his eyes even more while Kurenai pushed Naruto a bit more back behind her. Is that all you wanted to ask? Kurenai asked, making the Jonin mentally curse. She then continued to walk as she passed the Jonin without any more conversation. Na widened his eyes as Kurenai dragged him away from the scene. Car-san, you were so cool, Dado, Naruto said, making Kurenai smile. That was the only time that someone had complimented her on her intense gaze that she fed people. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Now then, let's head to your new house. Then we will get some scrolls so we can get the things from your old apartment. Kurenai told him, and Na nodded. So, Kurenai quickened the pace. After 15 minutes of walking, Kurenai took Naruto to a nice apartment that didn't look rundown at all. It looked brand new, actually. Kurenai and Naruto climbed up the stairs and came up to her door. Welcome home, Naruto-kun, Kurenai said as she opened the door. Na walked inside and gasped. It was nothing like his old apartment. It was larger, had more than one room, and looked amazing. Na thought it might have been a dream had he not been experiencing this for himself. The blonde ran around the room while laughing, making Kurenai giggle. Khan, it's amazing. My apartment is nothing like this. Am I really going to be staying here? Na asked, making Kurenai chuckle. Of course, you are silly. Now then, wait here and I'll get some scrolls, then we'll leave, Kurenai said, walking away. While Naruto looked around the room, he was surprised that it wasn't as girly or womanly as he thought it might have been, but Na was sort of relieved. He looked around and sat on the couch that was in the living room next to the coffee table. Wow, Car-san's place is really neat, Na said as he sank into the couch. He'd never felt anything so comfortable in his life. Just before he could submit to the softness of the couch, there was a knock on the door and the blonde raised an eyebrow. He wondered if he should answer it or what Kurenai would do. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and opened the door and was greeted to a woman a few inches shorter than his adoptive mother. She was wearing a trench coat and fishnets around her body and she had pink hair with a dango sticking out her mouth. Hey kid, who are you? The woman asked and Naruto raised an eyebrow. He wasn't sure how to answer that but luckily he wouldn't have to as Kurenai came back. Naruto, who's at the door? Kurenai asked only to see her friend at the door in front of her son. Anko, Kurenai said, making Naro and Anko turn to her. Na turned back to the woman and widened his eyes in realization. So her name was Anko. NC-han, I came to see you. Who is this little guy? Anko asked, and Kurenai smiled as she knelt down and wrapped her arms around the blonde before smiling towards her best friend. This is Naruto. He's my son, Kurenai said, and Anko nodded. Silence came over the room as the information came into Anko's head. He's what? Anko said, making Kurenai smile with a nod that she wasn't kidding. Anko gasped and looked at Na. NC-han, this is huge. Are you sure you can handle that? Anko asked, and Kurenai nodded. Of course, Anko, I take care of you just fine on occasion, Kurenai said, making Naruto snicker at the purple-haired woman's shocked face. How did he become yours? Anko asked, and Kurenai told Anko the whole story of how she found Na and her talk with the Sandaime Hokage about adopting Naruto. And needless to say, Anko was even more surprised. Whoa, Nai-chan, I didn't know you had it in you, Anko said while Kurena's eyebrow twitched. The Tunin huffed while Anko smiled at Naruto, making the blonde smile back at her. So, if he's your son, then can I be his sister? Anko asked, making Kurenai raise an eyebrow. Anko's eyes gave a pleading look while Kurenai sighed. Somewhere in her head, this was a horrible idea, but she relented. Fine, Anko. You can be Na-chan's sister, I guess, though I don't see why, Kurenai said, and Anko's grin got bigger. Are you kidding, NC-han? Anko asked as she sped to Na and gave him a hug, making the blonde blush. I've always wanted a little brother with whisker marks. Anko said, and Naruto's face turned blue. Can't breathe, NC-han. Na said before Anko dropped him with a smile while Kurenai sighed. So, what are you two going to do? Anko asked while Kurenai took out a scroll. She turned to see Na next to her and smiled. We're going to start packing Naruto's clothes from his old apartment. I have an extra room near mine that I never use, though it was mainly used for you when you passed out drinking, Kurenai said, making Anko give a nervous laugh while she scratched her cheek. Well, I've got nothing to do, so can I come? Anko asked, and Kurenai shrugged her shoulders. I suppose, come on, Naruto, and show us to your apartment, Kurenai said, and Na nodded. He immediately ran off, and they followed him. It turned out that Naruto's house wasn't so far from theirs, maybe about 10 minutes, and the sight of it made Kurenai and Anko narrow their eyes. It was old and seemed like it could be reconstructed, but it held out just fine. They all walked up the creaking stairboards until they came up to Naruto's door. Anko widened her eyes, and Kurenai's gaze grew cold. Naruto's eyes turned sad as they saw that his door had been broken down. Across the walls were hateful remarks about the demon and how it could die or go to hell. Something like that. Kurenai saw that Naruto's room was mostly clean if not for the random kanai marks and notes which Kurenai and Anko tore down. Kurenai turned to her son and smiled. Don't worry, Naruto. I won't let anyone or anything hurt you. I promise. Kurenai said, and Naruto's mood instantly changed. He thanked his adopted mother and the three go to work on sealing the blonde's clothes into the scroll. He didn't have much and most of his clothes were old. So Kurenai decided to take him shopping after this while Anko would have some fun with whoever did this to her little brother's room. It took about half an hour, but everything of importance was sealed and the three left the old apartment. All right, I'll take before we head back home. I think we'll take him shopping for some clothes, then we'll get something to eat to end the day. Kurenai stated while Anko and Naruto nodded, ignoring the many glares they got from people. Gotcha. En-chan, come on. Naruto, let's get you some clothes, Enko said as she grabbed Naruto's hand and the three walked for a clothes store. As soon as they came to one, all three entered the shop and were met with a smile that quickly turned into a frown when he saw Na. Obviously, Kurenai and Anko noticed his frown and glared. That thing isn't allowed in here, the man said simply while Kurenai's hair covered her eyes again. Anko, take Naruto-kun outside. I've got to teach this man a lesson. Kurenai said and Anko nodded as she grabbed Naruto and took him outside while Kurenai smiled. Let me show you why I'm called the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha and why you never insult my son. Kurenai said as the man was about to find out that he made the worst mistake of his life. Anko and Na waited outside for a few minutes before Kurenai smiled and allowed him inside. Na and Anko smiled and walked inside while the man was smiling like he just saw death flash before his eyes. Take anything you want. It's on the H house, he said, and Kurenai nodded. She and Anko grabbed countless clothes and had Naruto try on a few of them for their amusement. After about an hour, the three left and Naruto's stomach began to rumble. It was the middle of the day, so that was understandable. Are you hungry, Naruto-kun? Kurenai asked, and her adoptive son nodded. Enko's stomach grumbled, too, which made Kurenai sigh. Great, so are you. Well, I don't have my supplies, so I can't really cook. Kurenai said with a sigh while Naruto's eyes gleamed. Ka-san, can we get some ramen? Na asked, making Kurenai and Anko raise their eyebrows at him. Ramen would be a good change of pace. Nai-chan. Let's get some, Enko said agreed with her new little brother. Kurenai looked from her son to her best friend and sighed. Well, all right. I don't mind. Let's go then, Kurenai said as Naruto pointed his mother and sister towards his favorite with service. The god of shinobi was currently in the council room dealing with the ramblings of his council members which irritated him to no end. Serbi sighed as he placed his chin on his elbows and his elbows on the table. Now that this matter is over, what should we do about that blonde brat? A civilian said, making the shinobi side narrow their eyes. They were comprised of all the clans of Konoha. There was the Yamanaka, Inuzuka, Hyuga, Uchiha, Na, Aram, and Akamaiki. Of these clans were Inanoiki, Sum, Hyashi, Makoto, Shikaku, Shibi, and Shua. That brat has a name, just so you know, Sum said growling at them all. I don't care what you call him. The brat is just a brat. Come on, Sarobi. You know about his problem. We should get rid of him now. A councilwoman said, making Serbi narrow his eyes. Thatis hogue sama to you and you want do anything to Naran, Serbi said, making Sum and Makoto smile. Maybe I could adopt, Sum started, but was stopped by Sarah's old teammate, Kaharu Udatain. Absolutely not. He should be left alone as he always has been, Kaharu said, making Soon growl. But Hisan was smirking as he got a drop on the council. Besides Suman, it hardly matters now, Sirobi said, turning everyone's attention to him, making Makoto and Soon raise an eyebrow. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Makoto asked, interested in hearing what their Hokage had to say, and so did everyone else. Even Konoha's old war hawk, Danzo Shimura, was interested in this one. Naruto has already been adopted, Saratobi said, making everyone widen their eyes, especially the civilian council members. Sum and Makoto seemed more surprised than anyone else. What? Who would adopt that thing? A man said, making Serbi glare at him. He's not a thing, and I think the woman who adopted him as her son wouldn't like it if you called him a thing. Serbi said, making everyone tense. Hokage-sama, who adopted Naruto. I believe we should know this information, Hiashi said in a stoic form, making everyone nod in complete agreement with him. All right, Hiashi, since you and the other want to know so badly, then I'll tell you. As of 2 days ago, Naruto Uzumaki was adopted by Kurenai Genjutsu mistress. All of the paperwork has been finalized by me also, Serbi said, drawing gasps from everyone on the council. That woman adopted that brat, someone said, making Serbi nod. We should stop her right now, another person said before slammed the desk. I don't think so. If she adopted him, then it's fine with me. Kurenai has the support of the Inuzuka clan, Sunam said while Makoto stood to her feet. As well as the Uchiha clan, Makoto said to everyone. Most people gulped and dropped the issue since the Uchihas were still quite influential, even if it was only Makoto and her son Sasaki Uchiha. But someone started. No buts. Unless you want to fight me, then you'll leave Kurenai and Naruto alone, Makoto said and soon backed her up, making Serbi chuckle with a nod. Well, if that's all, then this meeting is adjourned, he said, and left while most were still stunned at the news. With Kura and Na, and Anko, all three were heading back home while Naruto and Anko rubbed their stomach. Na wasn't kidding. That Tuki sure can cook some ramen, Anko said, and Na nodded along with Kurenai. It was delicious, wasn't it? Kurenai said and Naruto tugged his mother's arm. Ka-san, do you think I can be like you and NC-han? Na asked, making Kurenai and Anko raised their eyebrows. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Kurenai asked and the blonde blushed slightly. I want to make you two proud. I want to be a shinobi. Please teach me Kasan NC-han. Naruto said as Kurenai and Anko looked at each other. Anko grinned and shrugged her shoulders. It's your call, Na-chan. He's your son, Anko said, making Kurenai smile. All right, Naruto-kun. We'll train you, but you must work hard and no complaining, Kurenai said and Naruto's eyes beamed as he hugged his mother. You got it, Ka-san. I'll make you and En-chan proud. Dad Bio-na yelled as he grinned. Kurenai ruffled his hair while Anko smiled. Things are getting interesting, Anko said and Kurenai nodded as the three walked off to their homes to prepare for the next day in Naruto's training. Na groggy woke up and yawned himself awake. The blonde rubbed his head before he took in his surroundings. The blonde widened his eyes when he remembered the events that happened yesterday. He had just gained a mother and he was more than happy about that. He also got an older sister, and while she was kind of weird, Naruto still liked her nonetheless. He also felt well rested in his new bed that Kurenai gave him. He hadn't had such a good sleep in such a long time, especially in such a comfortable bed like he had. I wonder if Ka-san's up, Na said before he smelled something cooking. His stomach grumbled and the blonde gulped as he stood to his feet. He quickly walked to the door and opened it to see Kurenai setting plates while humming a soft morning tone. Naruto smiled at his mother's singing and walked close, alerting the Genjutsu mistress to her adoptive son's presence. I see I didn't need to wake you up, Kurenai said, and Na sheepishly grinned as he sat at the table. Kurenai followed in suit and placed a glass of fresh milk in front of Na. The blonde looked at it then back at his mother. I thought you might like some Western food for a change, Kurenai said, placing some toast eggs on the table in front of him. Thank you, Kassen, Naruto said as he took a fork and started to eat the delicious breakfast in front of him. While Kurenai sipped some coffee, she smiled at her son's behavior and wondered how long it had been before he ever had a home-cooked meal. She only had herself and maybe Anko to go by when it came to cooking, but the look of joy on Naruto's face told her that she had done a good job with the breakfast. Naruto looked up from his food to see Kurenai smiling at him, and the blonde blushed as he took a bite of his toast. Ka-san, why aren't you eating anything? Na asked and Kurenai giggled, which made Na more confused, but he waited for his mother's reply. I don't eat this early. I just need my cinnamon coffee for right now. Kurenai said, and Na wondered what that could have tasted like, but he forgot it after a while and drank his milk, which ended his breakfast. Kurenai watched as her son picked up his dishes and walked towards the sink and started to clean the dishes, which really surprised the Ice Queen while she drank her coffee. Nukan, I didn't expect you to wash the dishes, Kurenai said, and Naruto allowed a smile to come across his face. He turned to his mother and gave her a thumbs up. I had to wash the little bit of dishes I had back in my old apartment, and I want to do what I can to make you happy, even if it's this, Naruto said, placing one clean dish on the counter, making Kurenai smile at her son for not acting like most 6-year-old boys. He knows how to be responsible. Normal boys his age would immediately go outside to play. That's my son, Kurenai thought before getting up and placing her coffee cup in the sink, and Na turned to that next. It was then that Kurenai grabbed Na into a small hug, which made the blonde pause from washing the dishes. Naruto, when you're done, I want you to get dressed in some of your new clothes. We're going to see Hokage-sama today and tell him about your training. Anko will be coming with us also. After we leave the Hokage mansion, we're going to go to the library and start your training with us. All right, Kurenai asked and Na nodded, understanding his mother's words. So, on that note, Kurenai released her son and went into her room to go get dressed. Na finished the dishes and went into his room also. Na rummaged through his closet and looked at all the new clothes he had. He still couldn't believe this. His mother managed to get all this stuff for free yesterday. It really made him wonder what she did, but he didn't care. He was just happy that she cared that much about him to get him these clothes. The blonde put on a black short jeans and a red sleeveless shirt, which really reminded him of his mother's eyes. He also wore the black ambush shoes that his mother got him and checked over his body. He went into the bathroom and brushed his teeth. Na came out of his room and waited for his mother to arrive as he sat on the couch. He didn't even have to wait long before Sakura and I appear in a red mesh blouse armor, and over that was a white bandaged-looking dress that came down to her thighs. Looking very good, Naruto. Well, are you ready to go? Kurenai asked and Na nodded with his mother. She grabbed his hand and walked towards the door, but immediately there was a knock coming which made Kurenai and Na raise their eyebrows. The Genjutsu mistress opened the door and both smiled when they saw who it was. Looks like I'm right on time, Anko said, making Kurenai and Naruto nod at her. Ka-san and I were about to leave. It's good to see you again, Anko. NC-han, Naruto said, which caused Anko to give him a hug. It's good to see you too, Naruto. So, what are we waiting for? Let's go, Anko said, and Kurenai nodded in agreement with her best friend. All right then, let's hit the streets, Anko said, grinning like mad, making Naruto chuckle and Kurenai sigh. She wondered how she was going to handle Naruto's growth with Anko being an influence like she was. As they walked through the trees, Anko and Kurenai could feel the glares more than usual, but they still didn't mind. Kurenai ignored him as usual since she was sort of used to being glared at, but for a different reason, while Anko glared right back at people as she twirled a kunai in her hands. Na shrunk under the stairs, making his mother and older sister worry about him and see that Anko grinned. Hey Na, want to see a good prank? Anko asked and Na instantly gave her the attention she wanted. Kurenai glared at Anko, wondering if she was about to do something that would give her a headache so early. Anko walked up to a civilian man who had been glaring at them and smiled. Hey sir, good morning to you, Anko said while the man narrowed his eyes at Anko's smirk. Naruto felt a prank coming while the man responded. What do you want, demon lover? The man asked and Anko's smile slightly waved while she grew a tick mark on her head. She slowly patted the man on the back and continued to smile. Just wanted to say good morning to you as all, Anko said, walking off, confusing the man as he continued to glare at them. Meanwhile, Anko and the others walked away as she held up 3 fingers to Na. 3, 2, 1. Anko counted and immediately the blonde and 2 Chunin heard a yell and turned around to see a snake slithering around the man's neck making him yell his lungs out while the other civilians screamed and ran from him before they got bit, which caused Anko and Naruto to burst out laughing and Kurenai to slightly giggle. Anko, nay, that was awesome. I thought he was going to pass out from the shock, Na said, making Anko ruffled her little brother's hair. Yep. I have a lot more that I could show you. Don't think you're the only prankster in Konoha. Anko said while Kurenai smiled at them. Anko, nah, unless I give permission, don't do that again. Kurenai said while Anko sighed at Kurenai's slightly boring sense. All right, Ka-san. Na said, not wanting to upset her. Anko nodded also and Kurenai gave a true smile as they walked towards the Hokage mansion, leaving the screaming masses behind. Hokage mansion. Sarutobi sighed as he went through some of the paperwork that he was doing. It was a gruesome thing that every Kage had to endure, but he still hated it, and to think he could be reading his favorite Ika book. He remembered how many of the council members came into his office yesterday about Naruto being adopted by Kurenai, but he told them that he had filled out the paperwork and made sure that it was safe simply because he always kept it near him. He knew that the group of people who actually liked Naruto was really small and he had no idea who would tamper with the documents. So he always kept them with him, though where no one knew. It was then that he heard a knock at the door and stopped signing documents. Come in, he said, and was slightly relieved to have a break. The old Hokage was then surprised to see Anko, Kurenai, and Naruto come through the door. His heart lightened when he saw Naruto smiling at Kurenai before everyone turned to him. Hey Gigi, how have you been? Na asked, making Kurenai raise an eyebrow and Anko to snicker at her little brother. Naruto, be respectful to Hokage-sama. Kurenai said, and Naruto apologized, but Serbi stopped. Kurenai, no, Kurenai-san, it's all right. He's always called me that and I hear enough Hokage-sama every day, so it's good to not hear it once in a while. Serbi said, and Kurenai nodded while Anko smiled. How about Serbi-sama? Anko asked, making a suggestion while Kurenai widened her eyes at how easy they were all talking with the Hokage. I don't see a problem with that. Now then, what can I help you 3 with? Serbi asked while Anko turned to Kurenai and gestured for her to proceed. Kurenai stepped forward and turned back to Na. Well, Serbi-sama, Naruto told us that he wants to be a shinobi, Sir Anko, and I were considering training him. Then I would enroll him in the academy when he was old enough. Her and I stated, and Serbi turned to Naruto, who nodded in agreement with everything she said. The Sandaime took a puff of his smoke. Well, I certainly have no problem with him learning anything. Also, it's not like you had to come to me for confirmation. Since you are Naruto-kun's mother, you can train him at your leisure if you wanted, though knowing this is much better than not knowing. Well, is that it? Surbi asked, and Kurenai nodded. Well, that's good. But you really shocked everyone, Kurenai. If you saw how many people protested to you adopting Naruto-kun, I'm not sure what you would have done, Surbi said. And Kurenai sighed. It doesn't matter. Surbi-sama Naruto-kun is my son and I won't let anyone take him. Kurenai said, and the Sandame nodded with a gentle smile. So let me guess. Anko, you wanted a part in this also. Hi, said Anko, chuckled. Yep. He's my little whisker-faced brother. Anko said, making Surbi sigh. He then turned to Na and watched the blonde laugh with his family. At least he's happy, Surbi thought before he heard another knock on the door. The Hokage sighed while Kurenai, Anko and Naruto turned their attention to the door. Come in, Shirobi said, and the door opened, to which Naruto saw a man in his mid-20s just like Kurenai, his grayish hair and his Konoha headband covering one of his eyes. Hokage-sama, you wanted to see me? The man asked with a lazy expression. Kurenai and Anko rolled their eyes at his lazy attitude while Na tugged Kurenai's arm. Khan, who's that? Naruto asked, pointing to the man, and Kurenai narrowed her eyes as the man looked at her son. That man is the biggest pervert, Naruto-kun. He is Kakashi Hatake and he reads weird books. It's best if you avoid him, Kurenai said, making Naruto glare at the man. Kakashi sighed as he rubbed the back of his head with an eye smile. Come on, Kurenai, don't say that. You'd enjoy it too if you read it, Kakashi said, to which Kurenai glared at him coldly, making the Jonin sweat drop. Okay, I guess not, he said while Kurenai glared at Kakashi. Meanwhile, Naruto tugged Anko's trench coat, making the purple-haired woman kneel down to her brother as Naruto whispered into her ear. Does Ka-san have something against Kakashi? Naruto asked, and Anko smirked as she watched the exchange. Not that I know of, but she just acts that way with all perverts. It's not just Kakashi, though. You know, Na, if you want to be like Kai, then you should adopt her gaze also. Your blue eyes are the perfect form of coldness, just like Kurenai's. Anko whispered, making Naruto widen his eyes. He looked up at his mother's glare and mentally told himself that he would try to glare like that someday. The cough from Surbi stopped Kurenai's glare and Kakashi passed Kurenai. Naruto and Anko then bowed before his Hokage. Kakashi, why did you fail another team? Surbi asked, and Kakashi narrowed his eye. It's because they weren't fit to be Shinobi, Hokage-sama. Kakashi said, and Surbi sighed. He took a deep puff of his smoke and turned to look out the window. Kakashi, that's the third team you failed. You said you wanted to teach the next generation, but you're making it difficult. Try and pass a team this time, Surbi said. And Kakashi nodded before walking towards the door, but then he stopped and turned to Kurenai. Well, Kurenai, congratulations on adopting Naruto. I guess despite your title as Konoha's Ice Queen, you are quite soft, Kakashi said with a chuckle while Kurenai narrowed her eyes. At least Ka-san isn't a pervert. Jonin, Naruto suddenly said, making Kurenai widen her eyes and Anko snicker. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the blonde while Naruto glared coldly at him. Kurenai giggled as she looked at her son's glare. He's not bad. That glare would make any normal kid flinch, Kurenai thought before Na grabbed her hand. Come on, Kasan. You and Ank said you'd train me, so let's go. Naruto said, running out the door while holding Kurenai and Anko's hand. I think you just made him hate you. Kirby said, and Kakashi sighed with a nod. He honestly didn't mean anything by it, but he knew that he shouldn't have said it like that. Kurenai already tolerate him and his pervert tendencies as it was. He probably just made it worse. I never thought that Kurana would adopt Naruto of all people, Kakashi said, and Shirobi nodded. Yeah, it's a shocker, but I'm happy for him, Kirby said. And Kakashi shrugged his shoulder while he took out an orange book and walked off, leaving Sarutobi to his work. With Kurenai, Anko, and Na having left the Hokage mansion, the group left the area and Kurenai grabbed Naruto's hand. She took him in the direction of the library while she turned to Anko. Anko, prepare our regular training ground for Naruto. We'll be there later, Kurenai said, and Anko nodded as she gave Naruto a goodbye and hopped along the rooftops. While Kurenai and her son walked into the library, they were both met with a bit of hostility, but there was nothing the civilians could do. So, Naruto entered the library for the first time. He looked at the mountains of books in the shelves while Kurenai took him to the shinobi section of the library. All right, Na, what do you want to learn? Well, get the books, Kurenai said, and Naruto thought it over. He rubbed his head for a few minutes while Kurenai slowly waited for her son's response to her question. Well, Ka-san, I'd like to learn everything. I want to be a well-balanced shinobi. I heard lots of people calling you the Genjutsu mistress. I want that to be my primary art. I'd like to have taijutsu and enjutsu just so I don't focus on one thing, Naruto said. And Kurenai chuckled, but she remembered Kyuubi's large chakra reserves, which gave Naruto nearly cage-level chakra just at the age he was. Genjutsu would be a bit of a struggle for him, but this was her son, and the least she could do was believe it was possible and teach him. Well, Naruto, I'm glad you want to be well-rounded, and you have two perfect teachers. Anko leans more to taijutsu and enjutsu, while I lean towards genjutsu and tactics. With your Ka-san and NC-han, you will be a very well-balanced shinobi. Now then, we will get to work on your chakra control. Do you know what chakra is? Kurenai asked and Naruto racked his brain. No Ka-san. I'm sorry, Na said and Kurenai patted his head. No problem, Naruto. For now, I'll tell you, and later I'll show it to you. Basically, chakra is the energy within our bodies. It's the thing that allows us to perform amazing techniques. In essence, chakra is a shinobi's best friend. Now then, let's get you some books. We'll mostly take some on chakra control and some on gen and tunin techniques. Kurenai told her son and Na nodded as the Genjutsu mistress handed Naruto the books, and when they were done they carried him out and walked towards a training ground. Ka-san, when did you start Genjutsu? Na asked out of nowhere as they walked for a few minutes. Kurenai smiled and looked up at the sky. Maybe since I started the academy, there weren't many Genjutsu users during that time, and I had a peculiar knack for it, so I went with it. Mostly, I wanted to prove that Genjutsu was just as good as taijutsu or enjutsu, Kurenai said, and Naruto nodded. That is a cool dream, Ka-san. Na said, and Kurenai giggled with a bit of thanks to her son. While they walked, Kurenai raised an eyebrow when she saw two other people walking. She knew the oldest right away while the younger she had a vague memory about. Of course, she couldn't really forget them. They were the last of their clan after all. It was Makoto and her son Sasaki Uchiha. Na looked at Sasaki and the brunette looked at Na. They both shared a glance at each other as the two mothers stopped to talk. Kurenai-san eat, Makoto said, and Kurenai nodded. She had seen Makoto around multiple times. There was a few other times that Anko and Yuga would invite herself and Makoto to a woman's night out. It's good to see you, too. It was quite a shock when I learned what you did, Makoto said, taking a glance at Naruto, which Kurenai did notice. Well, that's life, isn't it? My son is quite responsible for his age, Kurenai said, smiling. And Makoto chuckled. Sasuke-chan's no slouch either, though I wish he wouldn't mop all the time. Makoto said, and Kurenai raised an eyebrow, as to what she meant. Meanwhile, Naruto was staring at Sasaki and Sasaki was staring at Na. The two young boys glared at each other before the Uchiha spoke. What are you looking at? He asked while Na narrowed his eyes. Well, I'm looking at your moppy face. You need to lighten up. Na said, and Sasaki gritted his teeth at the blonde. HMPH, maybe you should mind your business, Sasaki returned, and Naruto's eyebrow twitched. This guy was seriously pissing the blonde off. Whatever, broody, Naruto said, and Sasuke gritted his teeth. He noticed the books in Naruto's hands and chuckled. So, you want to be a shinobi? Please, I already know a jutsu. Maybe you just suck, Sasuke said, and Naruto grabbed his collar. He scowled at the Uchiha while the brunette was sort of surprised by the action a little. Want to say that to my face? Emo? Naruto asked, and Sasaki grabbed Naruto's collar in return. Makoto and Kurenai watched the exchange and sighed. Boys would always be boys. Who you calling an emo loser? Sasaki retorted, and both gritted their teeth at each other. I bet I could be a better ninja than you any day, Naruto said. And Sasuke scoffed. I'd like to see you try. When I become the best, I'll kick. You're so far around this village that you'll never get up again, Sasuke said. And Na was about to say something, but both boys got grabbed and pulled away from each other. Come, Sasaki, be nice, Makoto said with a smile while Kurenai smiled at Na. Na, you too, don't fight yet, Kurenai said, and Na nodded with a quick apology as the two ladies dragged their sons away from each other. Hey loser, I intend to win that bet. You better be up to it, Sasaki yelled across the streets, and Naruto gave a hidden grin. Just be prepared to lose when I beat you to a pulp dabo. Naruto yelled, and he could have sworn that he saw Sasaki smirk. Meanwhile, Sasaki grabbed his mother's arm and quickly shot off for the Uchiha compound. Makoto was surprised at her son's strength in his grip as he pulled her along. "Essays, what's gotten into you?" Makoto asked, and Sasaki turned to her. Come on, Khan. We're training. I'm not letting that loser pass me, Sasuke said as he continued to drag his mother back to the compound, and Makoto saw a smile across his face. I'll have to thank Naruto for that someday, Makoto said in thought as she ran with Sasaki to give him the training he wanted from her. While that was going on, Kurenai and Naruto entered the required training ground as they walked through the trees. Ka-san, train me harder. I'll never beat that temp, Na said, and Kurenai giggled with a simple nod. That's fine and all, Naruto-kun, but don't forget that you must also train for yourself. To improve and exceed your limits as a shinobi, Kurenai told him, and Naruto nodded. I understand, Khan, Na said, and Kurenai nodded. They soon entered a lush field with a pond in the center of it. They saw Anko sitting on a tree branch waiting for them. As they came into the field, Anko-ne were here, Na yelled, and the snake mistress smiled with a somersault to the ground. All right, I was almost tired of waiting. Now then, NC-han, what shall we do to help him with first? Anko asked, and Kurenai put the library books on the ground. Before we start anything, I think we should start Naruto-kun on some chakra control exercises. Maybe 2 hours of that. Then we'll go into the basics for taijutsu, which should be for an hour, then another hour for Genjutsu, and we'll end the day with him reading about Genjutsu. Hirandai told her friend and Anko nodded. She turned to see Naruto staring at them and nodded. All right then, NC-han. If I remember, you have a mission with some other chunin in an hour or so, right? Why don't you go and I'll take care of Nukan? Anko said, and Kurenai sighed. She knew Anko was right. It wasn't a mission that was long. It was just babysitting a prince for about half the day for some country. All right, I guess I'll go. It shouldn't be long. Naruto, listen to your sister and you'll learn a lot. For now, I have to go to a mission. All right, Kurenai asked, and Naruto nodded. All right, Ka-san. Be safe, Na said. And Kurenai responded with a light kiss on his forehead before she jumped to the trees and left the two alone. Well, I'm in your care, Ankun, Naruto said, making the snake mistress smile. All right, Narukan. Kurenai wanted to start on chakra control. We will begin with a simple exercise. Simply balance this leaf on your forehead with nothing but chakra. It will take a while, but I know you'll get it. Just like this, Anko said, placing the leaf to her head as she sat in front of Na. The blonde watched the leaf stick and it stayed on her forehead for about 3 minutes before it dropped. A John can keep this up for about 3 hours flawlessly while Chun can do it for an hour. Now then, you try, Anko said, and Naruto nodded. He took a leaf and closed his eyes. During his walk with his mother, Naruto was taught how to direct chakra to the points in his body where he needed them. He had gotten lost on a few things, but he could tell what his mother was talking about. So, the blonde wasn't entirely confused on the matter. Na sighed and slowly tried to channel chakra to his forehead as he stuck the leaf on it. The blonde slowly removed his hand as Anko watched him. She was amazed that it didn't fall immediately, but after a minute or so, it did while Na pouted. Man, I had it, Dad. Bo, Naruto said, and Anko patted his shoulder. A small step back, Narukan. I honestly expected it to fall immediately, but you have some degree of control. I wonder why, Anko said, and Na scratched his head. Well, there were those times when I was being chased by a mob, and when they would nearly catch me, I would almost immediately run so far ahead of them. Does that mean anything? Na asked and Anko narrowed her eyes. You must have unconsciously applied chakra to your feet to give you that extra speed. Civilians don't really know how to use chakra, so you could outrun them easily. I'm both amazed and angry at that, but not at you, so don't read too much into it. Anyway, that was a good try. Now, Na-chan said to try for 2 hours, so I'll watch you and correct you on anything I see that needs to be changed, Anko said. And Naruto nodded as he closed his eyes and tried the leaf exercise again. With Kurenai, the chunin woman just got back to her house and opened the door. She quickly got all of her stuff together and got ready to leave. She had to meet up with Genma, Guy, and a Kakashi. Out of them all, Kakashi and Guy were the only Jonin while Genma and Kurenai were the chunin. But Kurenai was possibly the only real chunin since Genma said he was going to do the Jonin exams in the next month. Kurenai would have taken the exams also. But with her new responsibilities to Naruto, she knew that if she made Jonin then she would be called out a lot more and that would leave the village to chase him at their leisure and she would be damned if that happened. Well, I guess I can wait till he's about 10 or so, then I can become a Jonin. For now, Naruto is my primary concern, Kurana said to herself before heading for the door. She opened the door and almost walked out before seeing two council members at her doorstep. They were Kaharu and Homiera. Kurenai-san, glad we caught you. May we have a word? They asked, and Kurini narrowed her eyes. Her womanly instincts pointed this to Na or something that had to do with her adoptive son. Well, I'm kind of in a hurry, so I can't really talk long, Kurani said, and the two council members nodded. That's fine. We hope this won't take long either. So, well, get right to the point. We want you to relinquish Naruto Uzumaki from your care. No, Kurenai said just as fast as their request came out. Homura and Kaharu narrowed their eyes at her, and Kurenai stepped out of her doorstep and closed the door. Kurenai-san, you're a smart woman, so you should know that you can't raise him. He's not normal, Homia said. And Kurenai turned to them. I also don't think it's normal for people to maim a 6-year-old boy just because of hatred. Now then, if you're done, Kurenai said as she walked down the stairs and was about to leave. While Kaharu sighed. That thing must be controlled. Kurani-san, if we aren't careful, he'll destroy us all. You have to think about the safety of the village, Kaharu said. And Kurani sighed. This was exactly why she wanted to wait for Naruto to grow a little, then, for her to become a jonin. It was all for the purpose of her to stay close to her son. Kurani stopped walking and glared coldly at the two council members, making them both shiver. Never call my son a thing. He's Naruto Ueaki, and I'm not abandoning him for anything. I'd rather die, Kurini said as she sunshined away from view. Kaharu and Homura narrowed their eyes and sighed. What do we do, Kaharu? Homiera asked, and Kaharu sighed. I don't know. With two clans backing her up, Kurani and Naruto are virtually untouchable, Kaharu said, and the two council members quickly walked off. Back with Na, the blonde sighed and panted while he laid on his back while Anko laughed at him. Na had done the leaf exercise down to 3 minutes, which was the optimum requirement for most academy students. So, Anko took him to tree climbing, and the blonde's clothes were in tears. Wow, Naruto, you must have it rough. Anko said while the blonde glared at her. It's not funny, Anko. Nay, man. That hurt, Naruto said, rubbing his head. And Anko nodded while getting control of herself for a bit. Yeah, maybe it's beyond you at the moment. Let's get you started with my taijutsu. It's still a new form, but it's an effective one, said, and Naruto nodded. He got to his feet while Anko slipped into her taijutsu form. This is all about movement and dancing around the opponent almost to taunt them. It also relies on being flexible, so let's go at it, Anko said, and Naruto nodded. He ran at Anko, and the Tunin chuckled as she trained her little brother. Anko was brutal. She really didn't hold back for Na, and the blonde was cursing her mentally at the moment. He had been kicked, punched, slapped, back-slapped, and kneed in a certain place. He didn't know his sister could be so damn cold. Anko, nay, you're evil, Naruto said, panting. And Anko chuckled. Exploit all weaknesses, little brother. Now then, let's forget about Genjutsu tonight and simply taijutsu the day away. Anko said, and Naruto gulped. He hoped he would be alive enough to see his mother again, or this wasn't his day at all. Just like Anko said, they spared the day away, and not once did Naruto hit Anko. She was so damn slippery, just like a damn snake. His sister called her taijutsu form the hubby style, and Naruto could now see why she moved like a snake. She based her entire persona off of it. Enko taught Na the beginning katas to her form, and at the end of the day when the sun was going down, they stopped with a little jutsu lesson. Needless to say, Naruto's clothes could almost be considered rags and he was completely beat down. But the blonde smiled and hugged Anko. Thanks for the ouch training, Anko Nay. It really ouch feels good. Naruto said as it completely hurt to move his body. He had learned a lot from Anko, but at the end of the day his body was aching like hell. You're welcome, little brother. Now then, come on and get on my back. Enko said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow, to which Enko smirked. I know you can't move, so I'll piggyback to Enchan's house. Enko said, and Naruto slowly got on his surrogate older sister's back. Enko grinned as she trudged back to Kurenai's apartment. Ankon, Naruto said, and the snake mistress turned to him. What's up, Narukan? Enko asked as Na leaned on her back. He sighed and yawned. Sorry if it's personal, but where did you get this mark? Na asked, making Anko flinch as she felt Naruto touch her neck. She slowly calmed down and stopped walking. It's a story I'll tell you one day, but for now, let's just say it's a scar, Enko said. And Naruto nodded, not wanting to interfere in his surrogate sister's privacy any more than he already did. All right, Anko. Nay, just curious, Naruto said as he went to sleep on Enko's back, making the woman chuckle at how cute he could be. With Kurenai, the Tunin sighed as she came through the door of her apartment. Turns out that guard took longer than expected, since the nation's Damu was right that his son would get attacked. They were mostly bandits scattered from the neighboring countries, but there was quite a bit, and it took all of them to hold the bandits back. They were only adequate fighters, so it didn't take that long to take him out. Kurenai had received her mission's payment and just wanted to relax on her couch, but she knew she couldn't just yet since Naruto wasn't back. She was about to get up again and go to the training area, but the door opened and Enko brought in Naruto on her back, and Kurenai immediately got worried when she saw how terrible the blonde looked. Anko, you didn't have to go that far, Kurenai said as she rested Na on the bed. Sorry about that, NC-han. But he's really persistent. He's going to really be something in the future, Enko said. And Kurenai nodded in agreement. I guess now would be a good time for me to go to a new rank, Enko said. And Kurenai raised an eyebrow. I'm going to help you take care of him. He's my family, too, NC-han. Anko said, and Kurenai sighed. Well, that's all nice and good, Anko, but he needs to be alive for you to help him. Kurenai said, sending her friend a glare, while Anko sheepishly chuckled. Kurenai shook Na awake, and the blonde yawned. Ka-san back, Na said, and Kurenai nodded. The mission wasn't as long as I thought. Well, go to bed, Naruto-kun. You look exhausted. Well, do your Genjutsu training tomorrow. Kurenai told him, and the blonde nodded. He quickly got up and walked to his room. The blonde took off his clothes and took a quick shower, then went to bed just as easy while Kurenai and Anko sat at the table in the kitchen. NC-han, I think I should give him the contract, Enko said, and Kurenai narrowed her eyes. Enko, I don't think he's ready for that. Maybe after a few years of training, but not right now, Kurenai said as she sipped some water. Enko sighed and tapped the table with her finger. I'm not saying it has to be now. I'm just saying that I would want to, Enko returned. And Kurenai sighed while holding her glass. I suppose that's a good idea, Kurenai said. And Anko nodded with a grin. I never would have thought that you would become a mother, even an adopted one, the snake mistress said, and Kurenai snorted. I know that's right, but it's fulfilling, Kurenai stated. And Anko nodded while laying her head on the table before looking at Naruto's door. She walked over to the door and slowly opened it to see Naruto sleeping soundly and closed the door. Well, our lives just got that much more exciting. So, when are we going to tell you about this? Shells have a fit, Anko said. And Kurana knew that. Despite being the most composed one of the group, Yuga did tend to overreact to Soames, but that's what made her fun. I don't know, but that's a situation for another time, Kurenai said, and Anko nodded in agreement with her. She could wait for now. Well, I guess I can go home now, Anko said. And Kurenai waved goodbye. Anko, thanks for being Naruto's sister, Kurenai said, making the snake mistress chuckle as she opened the door. As I told you, Nai-chan, I've always wanted a brother with whisker marks. Anko said as she left while Kurenai sighed. She began to wonder if this was something to worry about, but decided to let it go. As she got up from her seat and walked towards her bedroom to go to sleep, she stopped to take a peek into Naruto's room and smile when she saw her son sleeping peacefully. Na Yui Maki, I think that has a nice ring to it, Kurenai said with a nod as she closed the door and went to sleep. She couldn't wait to get Naruto's training done so she could be certain that he could protect himself. 1 year later, Naruto Yui Uzumaki, it's time to get up and go to the academy. Kurenai yelled and heard a crash from her son's room. She sighed as Naruto came out of the room and chuckled. Sorry about that, Ka-san. I'm still a heavy sleeper, Na said. And Kurenai rolled her eyes. What am I going to do with you? Kurenai asked, and Naruto shrugged his shoulders. He quickly ate his breakfast and put on his clothes. Na had gotten taller over the year. His blonde hair was more Wildiel looking and his body just a bit more developed thanks to Kurenai and Anko's training. He had also learned a lot much more than the average genin did. Thanks to his sister, Naruto developed completely in the hub-style taijutsu. His moves were more fluid and he could spar with Anko a lot longer than he could a year ago. The blonde also gained a few jutsu underneath his belt. And while they weren't his nature, he still learned them for the sake of being well balanced. Much to Kurana's happiness and relief, Naruto with time and chakra control was able to use Genjutsu. She could only be happy that the whole year wouldn't have to be repeated anymore. That was one of the hardest times she had tried to teach someone Genjutsu, and the chakra control Na needed was quite large for his age. But as expected of her son, he did it all without fail. Kurenai also instilled in Naruto her dislike for perverts, and the blonde had the same cold gaze that his mother had. Aside from Tobi, Kakashi, Anko, and a few other people, no one knew that Naruto was adopted by Kurenai. She didn't feel the need to keep it a secret, but she thought that it might be best for Na if she didn't come completely out with it. Not that Na minded at all. To everyone else, Kurenai was still the cold, untouchable woman that she always was, but in front of Naruto, she was the nicest woman around. Kurenai was still a tunin and wanted to stay that way for about another year or so just to be sure, for Naruto's safety. Anko had been promoted to Tokubetsu-jan and started to work in the interrogation department with Ibiki, or who Naruto called Uncle Ibiki. Naruto only had a small group of friends, but they were still good friends nonetheless. Sasaki was more of a rival than a friend, but he appreciated having the Uchiha around. He also made friends with the Shikamaru Nara, the Inuzuka heir, Ka Inuzuka. He was sort of acquaintances with the Aburame heir, Shino, and the Akamaiki heir, Choji. He tried to be friends with the Hyuga heir, but she always ended up fainting, so Naruto sort of stopped going at her. All right, Car-san, I'm leaving, Na said, and Kurenai nodded. She gave him his lunch and the blonde left. Have a good day, Naro-kun, Kurana said as she looked out the window and saw Naro running for the school. I guess I can take the Jonin exam soon. I heard Makoto would be a Jonin sensei. I wonder if I should be one also. Kurini thought as she sipped her coffee. Soon there was a knock on her door and the Genjutsu mistress opened it. Hey NC-han, Enko said coming in and Karani waved. Is Naruto gone? Enko asked and Karani sighed with a nod. Well, he'll be fine though. NC-han watched the academy. Who knows what they'll try with Nukan? Enko warned. And Karani took that warning to notice. I know. That's why I told one of the Chunin who knows na. H is Aruka Yumino. Hell watch Narut, for me and report to me if anything happens that looks weird. Karani said and Anko nodded. Then send them to me and I'll make them straighten up. Enko said while Kurenai chuckled. Your definition of straightening up is very twisted. Anko, Kurini retorted. And Anko scoffed. How mean, NC-han. Anko said and Kurenai giggled before she went to get dressed also. She had a long day of missions to do with Anko and now was the perfect time to get them done. She also couldn't wait to give Na something very special. Sir Anko, do you think he'll like it? Kurini asked and Anko nodded. I know he will. NC-han with it. He'll be quite the ninja. I can't wait to see people's reactions. Enko said and Kurenai nodded in agreement with her. Her son would really be quite the shinobi. She could attest to that after all. Narut walked sighed as he walked through the door of the academy. It was his first day to the school in order for him to make his mother proud and become a shinobi. He had made his friends prior to the academy, so this would be the first time that he would be seeing them all. I guess I'll get a move on, Na said as he came up to his room. Na opened the door, but he was surprised when he saw no one was there. He was probably the first to arrive to the class, so the blonde chose a seat near the window and stayed there as he waited for other people to arrive. It had been over 45 minutes for Na, making the blonde narrow his eyes, but then the door opened, making Na jump. He turned to see Sasaki come through the door. Na was more than happy to have someone in the room with him and grinned. Hey, T, how are you today? Na asked in a smug way while Sasaki grinned at his rival. He'd been training with him mother a lot before the academy just so he could kick Naruto's one day and prove he was the best between them. Hey loser, so it looks like we're the first to arrive, Sasaki said, making Na nod in agreement with him. Sasaki sat in a seat row below Naruto and took out a book about shuriken techniques. Na seemed vaguely interested in the book, but he pulled out his own book, which was entitled Shunin Chakra Control Exercises. The two boys spent their time waiting for everyone to arrive and simply sat in silence as they read through their books. With Karani inside the mission room was Karani, Asuma, and Genma. The three were standing in front of their Hokage waiting for their mission to be given to them. Kurenai had taken a small leave to watch Naruto the past year. So now she wanted to earn more experience so she could start becoming a Jonin. All right, I'm glad you could all make it. Your mission is to guard supplies that are being shipped to Ada's location. It might be targeted by thieves. You're to leave in the next 15 minutes, Serbi said, and everyone nodded with their individual bows. Yes, Hokage-sama, they all said as they started to leave. Kurenai-san, please stay behind, Serbi said, making Karani raise an eyebrow, but she nodded and closed the door. Yes, Serbi-sama, Kurenai asked, making it known that she would only say that when they were alone, which Serbi didn't mind at all. He really rather welcomed it, to say the least. Well, Kurenai-san, I know you had Naruto start the academy, and I just want you to know that until today, I had made the council swear not to talk about Naruto's adoption. I figured your life and his life would be made easier like that, but now it will be public knowledge. I just want to know if you're prepared for that, Serbi said, and Kurenai smiled. It's all right, Saruto-sama. I have Anko watching the place when she's not busy, and we haven't been idle with Naruto-kun either. Granted, he's only about genin level at the moment. He can still be quite the shinobi when he wants to. I know he can. He's my son after all, Kurenai said as she knew that Serbi had stopped the spread of rumors about her and Na. And while she was grateful for it, she didn't really think it was necessary. She knew it would be public knowledge about this time and most people would be surprised. But that was all right. She figured. Well, if that's all Hokage-sama, I'm going to go. Kurenai said, and Serbi nodded with smile on his face as he saw Kurenai leave. Back at the academy. Okay, I am happy to see some new faces in the room. I know we will have a good year as we prepare you for your first step to becoming shinobi, Oruruka said, making all the kids smile and slightly cheer. It had been a while, but Na and Sasaki had seen everyone else come in and calmly waited for the teachers. Seeing most of his friends, Na gestured for them over to his seat, which came to be Shikamaru, sitting next to Na, while Ka was next to Shikamaru. Above Na was Shino, Choji, and Hinata. Right below the blonde was Sasaki and a new face that the blonde had never seen before, which was Ino Yamanaka. Right next to her was a pink-haired girl who was seethed at the Yamanaka heir for some odd reason, to which made Sasaki sigh. Hey Sasaki, what's up with those two? Na asked, and Sasaki rolled his eyes while glaring at the two girls in question. Who knows? I'm trying to ignore them at the moment, the Uchiha said, and Na chuckled at him for sounding like that. He wondered if those girls had a small infatuation with Sasuke, but then he turned back to the front to listen to Ruka speak. Now then, before we begin the lesson, let's tell everyone our names, Aruka said, making everyone nod as the first person stood to their feet and announced their name. I'm Kaoru Yukio, the small girl said, making Aruka nod. This happened to everyone as it slowly came down through the list of academy students. It slowly got through to the group in the corner while Aruka told everyone to begin. I am Hinata Hyuga. Nice to meet everyone, she said with a bow and sat down. Next to her was Shino as he stood to his feet. I'm Shino Aram. Please treat me well, Shino said and sat down. I'm Choji Akamaiki. It's great to be here, Choji said, rubbing his head as he sat back down while munching on some chips which he passed to Naruto. Ka and Shikamaru a few times. I'm Karanuka and I'm going to be the best in this class, Ka said while the little dog on his head. Akamaru yipped in agreement. Next was Shikamaru, who lazily looked up from his desk. I'm Shikamaru, N. This is such a drag, but since I'm here, I guess I'll just deal with it, Shikamaru said before closing his eyes for a bit. Naruto chuckled at his friend and shook his head. As expected of the Narus. Great geniuses, but terribly lazy. It also dawned on Naruto that all Na had some type of hot-headed woman. It must have been a Na preference, Na figured. Realizing it was his turn, the blonde sighed and stood to his feet. He saw most of the kids glaring at him. But Naruto knew why. He knew that parents told their children to stay away from him since he was a bad influence, but it was amazing that all the clan heirs found no problem with, and neither did their parents. He wondered why that was, but he could think it over later. I'm Nayui Uzumaki. I hope to learn a lot from all of you. Dabo, Naruto said, making most of the children widen their eyes. Yuhi, by any chance are you related to the famous Genjutsu mistress, Kurenai Yui-sama? A girl said, and Naruto nodded his head. Yeah, I'm her son, Naruto said, making the entire class except for those who knew Na gasp out loud. Wait a minute. You're blonde and she isn't. You have blue eyes and hers are red, plus the last part of your name. She's not an Uzumaki. Why don't you stop lying? One of the boys said while the other children nodded. Na rolled his eyes while the others came to his aid. It's true. We've heard Karani call him her son and he called her Kassen. You guys should get your facts straight before you accuse someone, Shikamaru said while Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I said what I wanted to. That's all. Na said sitting down while Iruka rubbed his temples and told for the next person to announce their name. I'm Sakura Haruno. Nice to meet everyone, she said smiling. And next to her was Ino. I'm Ino Yamanaka. Hello, she said with her quick introduction and sat back down. Next was the person who made most of the girls giggle and smile. I'm Sasaki Chiha. The brunette said simply and sat down. He just wanted to get things over with. So he didn't both with the pleasant greeting. Iruka nodded with the last person announcing his name and smiled. All right, now that we have all announced ourselves, we will start learning about the history of the village. Iruka said, effectively making all the students groan while Iruka chuckled before he started writing on the board. It was a long time, but the bell rang and Iruka stopped talking. All right, everyone. We will now have lunch and after that I will be teaching you what a kanai and shuriken is. Then we will try a little target practice, Iruka said, and everyone nodded while getting up from their seats. Naruto had left the room and out into the yard. He sat on a simple bench and leaned back. He had never been so bored in his life with that little lecture. Sure, history was important, but damn, it could be boring. The blonde sighed one more time and pulled out his lunch, which consisted of some rice balls, chicken, and some cooked rice. Thank you for the food, Kassen. Naruto said and started eating his mother's cooking, which was always good to him. Hey, nah, so this is where you ran off to, Ka said, interrupting the blonde as he swallowed his food. Na also saw Shino, Shikamaru, and Choji coming along with him. Hey guys, just wanted some quiet, I guess, Na said as he placed some chicken in his mouth. Where are Hinata, Sakura, and Ino? The blonde asked and Shino slightly adjusted his glasses. They went to have lunch together. We offered for them to join us, but Ino said that girls should spend time together. So, they took off. Shino said while Na wondered what that was all about, but he didn't care. By then, he noticed Ka looking around. Where's Sasaki? Ka asked, and Na pointed up making the 4C Sasaki eating his lunch while he leaned on a tree. He's been there for about 5 minutes, I guess, Naruto said as he continued eating. Ka and Shikamaru's sweat dropped, but they all stopped talking and continued on with their lunch break, which was relatively quiet. Behind the academy, it had been 5 minutes since everyone had finished their lunch break, and they were all in the back with a new face alongside Iruka. All right, everyone. This is my partner, Mizuki. Now, then, we'll begin the lesson. Can any of you tell me what a kana is? Iruka asked and someone raised their hand. A tiny knife that shinobi used to pull off awesome attacks. Someone asked, making Iruka and Mizuki chuckle. That's the generally idea. A kunai is a shinobi's main weapon of choice. There are many things you can learn to do with kana. You can throw them, use them for traps, and fight with them. The possibilities for kana are endless. Now then, we will practice throwing them. Who would like to go first? Aruka asked. No one seemed that eager since they never held a kunai before in their life. But someone had to go, so Aruka sighed. All right then, I'll pick Na. Why don't you give it a try? Aruka asked, and the blonde stood to his feet. Sasaki paid special attention to this one as a small grin appeared on his face. Aruka gave Na the kunai and pointed towards a target. Na nodded, but also didn't miss the small glare he was getting from Mizuki. It made Na sigh that even the teachers hated him. Hit the target as best you can, Naruto. Aruka told him. Na nodded and mentally thanked Anko for teaching him about kana and what you could do with them. Of course, she taught him to be creative with them also, which earned her a small smack on the head from Kurenai at the time. Naruto threw the kunai at the dummy target, and it amazed Aruka and even Mizuki that the blonde had such a good execution. The kunai embedded itself in the exact center of the target while Naruto smiled. How is that, Aruka-sensei? Na asked, and Aruka nodded. Everyone widened their eyes at Naruto's accomplishment as the blonde sat back down. Ka leaned next to him and whispered. Where do you learn to do that? Ka asked, and Na grinned. I learned how to throw them a year ago. Na said, and Ka pouted, which followed a small mutter of show-off, making Naruto smirk. Sasaki then rose his hand that he would like to try, and Aruka allowed it. You can do it, Sasuke, Sakura yelled before Aruka shushed her so that Sasaki could concentrate. The Uchiha thanked his sensei before looking back at the target. He had been training with his mother and he knew he had improved. He wouldn't fall behind Naruto at all. Sasaki threw the kunai at the target and it came to the center also. Most of the girls cheered for the Uchiha as he sat down. The entire period went on like this as Sasaki and Naruto tried to own up each in just about everything. They were rather amusing to watch for everyone else. Before anyone knew it, the day at the academy was over for everyone, with Mizuki asking one last question. So, does everyone know what today is? Mizuki asked, and all the students raised their eyebrows before someone stood to their feet. It's the festival day, right? When the Yandere took down the Kaiba and saved the village, one of the kids said, making Naruto narrow his eyes. He had known about Kaiba as when he asked Kurenai and Anko had told him the entire thing. Naruto had been quite depressed that last year, but Kurenai kept telling him that he was nothing like Kaiba and that he would always be her son. So, Naruto eventually got out of it. Today was his birthday, and while no one really appreciated it, there was something good about it. That's right. So enjoy the festival for all it's worth, Mizuki said as he left laughing. But Aruka could hear the disdain in that talk. He sighed and rubbed his head. He'd have to have a talk with Mizuki when he had the chance. Well, on that note, class is over, everyone. Enjoy the festival and someone's birthday, Aruka said, making all the kids nod as they ran out the door as they couldn't wait to wear their kimonos and go to the festival. Meanwhile, Naruto got up to his feet and turned to Ka. Hey guys, want to get something to eat? Naruto asked, but Ka shook his head. Sorry Naruto, I've got practice today, Ka said as he walked out. Everyone followed him, leaving Naruto in the room. The blonde sighed and rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, I was going home anyway, Naruto said to himself as he walked out the room. As he exited the door, Na saw Aruka behind the doorway smiling at him. Hey Na, are you going home? Aruka asked and Naruto nodded. He gave a small sigh, but Aruka continued to smile. Hey, why don't I treat you to some ramen? I'd like to get to know some of my students, Aruka said, mainly because he was afraid of Na getting attacked on his way home while Karina was gone. But the blonde didn't seem to pick up on that. I'm all right, Aruka-sensei. I guess we can go, Na said as the two walked towards Ikyaku Ramen, Naruto's #1 spot to eat other than what his mother cooked. It was obvious to the two that they were being glared at, mostly Naruto more than usual. It was a lot more anger-filled than before, but Na knew why. Trying to change the mood in the air, Aruka decided to speak. So, Naruto, how are you so good with a kunai? You really surprised me, Aruka said, and Naruto slightly smiled. Ka-san taught me. She and Ankun have been training me for a year now, so I know a bit, Naruto said. And Aruka widened his eyes. He didn't know that Naruto was being trained by Anko or Kurana. He did know that Kurana adopted Naruto, but didn't think she would train him. No wonder he hit the target with that kana so easily. Wow. Well, I can't slack off on you. Sasake is getting trained by his mother, and you're getting trained by your mother. I must say that you're amazing, Aruruka said, and Naruto thanked him. After walking for a bit longer, the two came up to the shop and settled inside. Hey, Chiyuki-ojasan, can you get me some ramen? Na asked, and the old man behind the counter smiled at his favorite customer. Sure, kid. Whatever you want today, I'll make it for ye, said, making the blonde's face light up like a small light. Aruka chuckled at him as Tuki brought them 3 bowls of ramen. 2 for Na and 1 for Aruka. Eat up, he said, and the two dug in. Na instantly slurped up his noodles since he could never do it if his mother was with him. Heck, she wasn't afraid to hit him on the head for slurping his food. Aruka merely chuckled at him and he continued to his own bowl while he watched Naruto eat his food. The two ate in relative silence and simply enjoyed their food. They didn't talk about much except for being glad to know that the other would be teaching. When all was said and done, Oruruka left Na alone, and the blonde walked off. He had nothing to do since his mother was gone, so he decided to head home and get some rest before Anko came home. The walk was sort of short for Naruto walked up the stairs and came up to his mother's apartment. He had been given a key and the blonde was about to open the door, but then he felt a hand wrap over his shoulder. Hey, Oto, how are you doing? Enko asked, surprising him. Hey Anko, nay, I was just finished with my first day at the academy, so I thought I'd get some rest before practicing. Naruto said and Enko grinned like she always did. Well, sorry, but you're practicing now with En-chan. You can rest all day, but training is forever, Enko said as she dragged Naruto away. The blonde sighed as he couldn't go home, but he knew Anko was right. What he didn't know was that he saw Anko wipe her brow as she took him to the training field. Training field. Anko plopped Naruto on the ground and grinned while the blonde rubbed his head. Enko nay, don't you have anything to do with Abikyoji? Na asked and Anko's smirk only widened. He's not in today, so I'm got the day off. Unless you don't want to learn a new jutsu from your only chan, Enko said and immediately Naruto shot up and grabbed Enko into a hug. Anko-chan, have I told you how much I love you, do? Naro said, and Anko rolled her eyes while she ruffled the blonde's hair. She could always get his attention with something like this any time of the day. All right, Naruto. I'll show you a new jutsu and we'll work on it into the night. All right, Enko asked, and Naruto smiled with a nod. He could hardly wait for it. All right, I know. NC Han attempted to teach you the bunken technique, right? Anko asked, and Naruto nodded. He had tried it before, but not matter how fine-tuned his chakra control was, he just couldn't deal with that jutsu. All right, then I'll teach this to you. I learned it a few days ago and realized it would be perfect for a chakra house like you. Now watch me, Anko said as she crossed her fingers. Naruto raised an eyebrow as she yelled. Cage Bunch and Nojutsu, Anko said, and immediately a clone came next to her. Naruto figured it was an illusion, but he was shocked when he saw the clone move and it patted him on the head. Anko nay, there's two of you. Naruto asked, and the two Ankos smiled at Naruto's confusion. That's the Cage Bunchin Jutsu Narutoken. This is a step above the original. It can move, talk, fight, and do all the things that you can do. Obviously, they require a lot more chakra, but for someone like you, they are the perfect judo, Anko said, and Naruto's eyes gleamed. He immediately got to his feet and tried it. Cage Bunch, no jutsu, Na yelled and allowed his chakra to flow for a while. Soon, 3 clones appeared next to him and Naruto jumped up and down while Anko's eyebrow twitched. She worked on that technique for 3 hours. When she found out about the technique and just seeing her hand signs, Naruto got it in under 10. Kami, you are so not fair, Anko said in thought while Na and his clones conversed. But then Anko brought them all to attention. Well, since you seemingly have that down, well, go on with one more jutsu that I'll teach you, Anko said, and she touched the ground. She held up a single hand sign and yelled, no, Shin, no Odoana, ninja art. Pitfall of death, Anko yelled as the ground in front of her split into a hole that Naruto tried to see the bottom, but he couldn't. Don't be fooled, Na. You might not see anything, but down there are thousands of kana that will really cause you some pain. Do you want to jump inside? Anko asked. And as she did, she saw Na whistling all the way next to a tree quite a few ways from her. Oh, come on. I wouldn't really push you down there. NC Han would kill me, Anko said. And Na wearily walked over. In all honesty, this is probably a mid-shei rank jutsu since it doesn't really use that much chakra. But that depends, Anko said, and Na raised an eyebrow. On what, Anko? Nay, Na asked, and the snake mistress chuckled. Well, it depends on how much chakra you put into it and how deep you want the pit to be. It works like a charm, though, Anko said. And Naro stood in a space a bit further. So, can I try it now? Naro asked and Anko nodded as she watched him go for it. Naruto had practiced the 2 new jutsu that Anko taught him. And while the Cage Bunch was a piece of cake for him, the death trap that he tried to keep making wasn't. It was either too short or rough. Anko told him that the solid part was to make it long and steep so the person trapped inside wouldn't be able to use chakra to cling to the walls of the trap. The two had stayed out in the field for at least 4 hours and the sun was starting to go down for them while Konoha's lights went up and the small fireworks went up around the village, which made Anko smile. Anko nay, I got it. Is this steep enough and long enough? Naruto asked and Anko looked down the hole. She whistled at it and made a cage bunken and ordered it to go down the hole, which the clone refused. But Anko pushed it down there, and it was quite a drop down, only for Anko to receive a painful memory filled with kana spikes embedded in her back, which made her shiver slightly. Nice job, Na. That's the ideal pit. Now, keep practicing it, and I'll teach you the next step to it, Anko said, and Na nodded. By the time the blonde noticed it was dark inside, he really didn't have anything planned for his birthday, but that was all right. Well, nah, shall we go home? I'm sure Nan is back and wondering where you are. Anko snickered, which made Na nod, though he glared at her wondering what was so funny, but Anko didn't say anything as they almost left the field. Na suddenly stopped as he looked at the ground for a second. It seems to move for a bit as he looked down. Anko followed his eyes and saw an injured snake on the ground. Anko raised an eyebrow while Na gazed at it. It was probably a mild wound, but he still felt a bit of sympathy for it. Don't get too close, Narok, it's poisonous, Anko said, and Narut chuckled. He knew she didn't mean that, but he saw the small irony in it. The snake turned to Na and forked its tongue at him as a warning. The blonde didn't seem intimidated by it and let out his hand, which made the snake hiss. He waved his hand left and right while the snake watched him, but Naro could see it was still injured as it hissed to him. Anko simply continued to watch the blonde do whatever he was doing and watched as he snaked his other hand around the snake's head and gently petted it. Anko was about to warn Na, but she was amazed when the snake didn't strike the blonde and simply took in his scent with its tongue. The snake slowly stopped hissing as Na rubbed the back of its head. On a closer inspection, Naro could see that the snake had black scaly skin with a red diamond pattern going down its back. It really looked beautiful when brought to the light. It was rather an average-sized snake, Anko figured. And it was about the entire length of Naruto's arm. Anko nay, think you can heal a snake? Na asked, and Anko narrowed her eyes at the blonde. You think that just cause I'm called the snake mistress, I can heal a snake? Anko asked, and Na gulped. She smiled as she looked through her trench coat for a bandage and some disinfectant. The snake watched Anko cautiously as she sprayed the disinfectant over the snake's wound. The snake hissed a bit and forked its tongue at her. Anko stuck her tongue back at it and placed a bandage over the snake's wound. There, he should be fine. Snakes can regenerate fast when they want to, said, and Na nodded. It was then that the snake slid up Naruto's arm, surprising the blonde and Anko as it snaked around his neck. It didn't try to strangle him, but just kept firm on it. It seems he likes you, Anko said, and Narut turned to the snake. The snake forked its tongue at him as it started to slither around his arm for a bit. I think so, too. What should call him? Naro asked, and Anko chuckled, but remembered to take Naruto home. As they walked home, both Narut and Anko tried to come up with a name for the snake that had taken a small liking to Naruto as they appeared in front of Kurana's apartment. I think Kurenai is a good name, Narut said as he opened the door with his key. Anko was grinning like mad when he opened the door. It was completely dark as Na walked inside. As Anko closed the door, surprise and happy birthday Na. People yelled, shocking Narut, who really jumped out of his skin. Shino, Shikamaru, Joji, Sasake, and Hinata in the room along with Kurani, Serbi, Tuki, Ayami, Abeki, and Makoto. Happy birthday, Narokan, Kurenai said, giving Naruto a hug. She had noticed the snake around his arm and admitted she was sort of worried, but the snake didn't do anything as it flicked its tongue at her. She had been around Anko all the time, so being around a snake was almost no surprise to her. Where do you get the snake? Narukan Kurenai asked, and Narut softly petted the snake's head, making everyone else glare at it. I found it in the forest, helped it, and it likes me. Think I could keep it? Na asked, and Kurenai raised an eyebrow. Sasake, Shino, and Shikamaru gazed at the snake for a bit longer. Well, it is your birthday, so I guess you can, Kurenai said, and Narut thanked his mother. It was then that Naruto turned to his friends. When did you guys get here? Naruto asked while Sasaki rolled his eyes. Please loser. Car-san made me come. She said rivals go to each other's birthday for some reason. Sasaki said, and Na grinned when he saw Makoto wink at him. She of course knew about Sasuke's rivalry to Na and thought that her son could use the good competition. It would be great for Sasaki to forget that night. We got here about half an hour ago. Kurenai-san had us put up these decorations. Car had been a little obvious back at the academy, but we pulled it off, Shikamaru said, rubbing the back of his head. Na smiled with a nod as Ayame and Tuki brought a chocolate cake in front of the blonde. It might have been the day of the festival for Kalubi's defeat, and that was good reason to celebrate, but for everyone else, a birthday was just as good to them. Happy birthday, Naruto, Ayame said, and everyone gathered around Naruto. There were 8 candles and the blonde smiled again. Blow 'em out, Naruto. So, I can have some of that cake, Shoji said, drooling. And just as easily, the blonde blew the candles out and everyone clapped for him. Now that he's 8, I think I'll start with my present, Anko said as she bit her thumb. Everyone watched as she went through her hand signs and hit the ground. Immediately, there was a puff on the ground which brought out a large scroll in front of Na. Naruto, this is a big gift that NC Han, and I talked about it a year and a half ago. I told her that you should sign this like your NC Han. So Naruto wa be a snake summoner? Anko asked while Serbi grinned. He could only imagine if Manado and Kusha could see Naruto now. Anko nay, are you sure I can? Na asked and Anko turned to the snake that was still wrapped around his arm while it forked its tongue out. Oh, I'm sure. You seem to have a real gift with snakes. I think your friend there can agree, Anko said, making everyone smile while Kurenai patted Naruto's shoulder. Go on, Na. It would also mean much to Anko if you did, Kurenai said to her son. And the blonde saw Anko stutter while she insisted that it wasn't true. But to her, it'd be nice if she wasn't the only one who had this contract with them besides her and him. All right, where do I sign Anko? Nay. Na asked, and Anko unfurled the scroll. Right here. Just bite your thumb, then trace your name into the paper, Anko said, and Naruto nodded. He knelt down and bit his thumb, then wrote his name over the scroll. It glowed for a bit, then faded. Soon, a snake came out in a dark green hexagonal pattern. SSSO, you're our newest SSS summoner, right? How nice, the female-sounding snake said, and Naruto blinked. Nice to meet you. I hope to do good with the snakes, Naruto said. And the snake smiled while she looked at the snake around Naruto's arm. Well, the girl on your arm like SSSS you enough. SS she says that wants to thank you for helping her. The snake said and Naruto widened his eyes. So this was a girl he had on his arm. How cool was that? Well, thank you. Anything I should know? Na asked and the snake woman shook her head. No, not really. Just be kind to us SS and we'll be kind to you, the snake said as she bowed and disappeared. Na then looked back at the snake on his arm and smiled. I got it. Your name will be Maka, Na said, and the snake forked her tongue at him. Everyone thought over the word and found that it meant Ali in kanji. Makoto giggled at the idea while Makata slithered into Naruto's jacket and the blonde giggled when he felt her ball up and rest near his body. Well, that's my gift, Naruto-kun. Now then, anyone else? Anko asked, and soon everyone stepped forward. Ka gave Naruto a scroll about taiyutsu, while Sasaki gave Naruto a demon wind shuriken that was special to his clan. It was made of a special metal that made it almost unbreakable to any type of attack. There were only 10 in the whole clan, so Sasaki gave one away to Na. Enjoy if loser. I'll be sure to fight you with one, so don't hold back, Sasuke said with a small grin, and Naruto nodded at him. Hinata and Shino had gotten Na a book and some ointment, which both were said to be bestsellers. Shoji and Shikamaru gave Na, with their parents' help, an exclusive Kana and Shuriken set with some high-grade medals. Hope you like them. It's not hard to know what you like, Shikamaru said, rubbing the back of his head with a yawn while Naruto shook his head. Next was Ibiki, who had given Naruto some John and wire. It was used mainly for trapping someone, but it was still a great gift from the head of interrogation. After him was Tuki and Ayami, who gave Naruto a small coupon for a month of free ramen, to which Naruto would take extreme advantage of. Second to last was Serbi, and the old Hokage smiled as he gave Naruto a single kunai. It was three-pronged, making everyone look at the kunai funny. But Makoto widened her eyes and simply turned to Sarutobi. Are you sure about this? Makoto asked, and Serbi nodded. One piece of his heritage, Makoto-san. A few years at a time, Sarutobi said, and Makoto shrugged. She wouldn't tell her Hokage what to do. When Na was done with his gifts, Kurenai came up to the blonde and gently smiled. She gave him a piece of clo and the blonde unfurled it. He widened his eyes at what was inside. They were two short blades, each about the half the length of his arm. They were Kodaki, and Naruto loved them. Lots of Genjutsu users and Enjutsu users have these. Most prefer Kai to these, but this is the standard, Kurenai said. And Na hugged his mother. Thank you, Ka-san. I love them, Naruto said. And soon enough, the blonde and everyone else saw a small fire in the village. Everyone looked while Serbi, Na, Anko, and Kurenai widened their eyes. It was Naruto's old apartment that was on fire, and Naruto frowned. You don't live there. You live with me, Na. I promise they won't hurt you. Not that they could, Kurenai said, and Naruto's face brightened. Well, we're going to go now. Enjoy your birthday, Na, Shikamaru said, and people started to leave. Anko also left, leaving Na, Kurenai, and Mikata in the room. Never imagined this, Kassen, Naruto said, and Kurenai nodded with she drank some water. Na was drinking some juice. He could feel Mikata's coils against his body and chuckled. He really did like snakes after all. So Ka-san, are you going to be a jonin now? Na asked, and Kurenai set her cup down. That is right, Naruto-kun. I'm going to be a jonin. I'll be busy a lot more, but Anko stays pretty close to the village, so you'll be fine with her, right? Kurenai asked, and Naruto nodded. That's right, Ka-san. Now then, I'm going to take Mikata to bed. See you tomorrow, Naruto said, and Kurenai nodded. She smiled at seeing her son leave the room while she looked out the window. She gazed and saw the village in an uproar for the celebration while Kurenai's gaze turned cold. I'm going to have to find out who did that. Even if he doesn't live there, no one does that to my son, Kurenai said in thought as she finished her drink. She turned out the lights and went to sleep also with Na. Na sighed as he placed all his things down. He had a really good birthday. It was probably the first real one he had to himself. Na unzipped his jacket and watched Mikata slither to the bed. She then proceeded to slither around the room like she was getting a feel for it. Na took his jacket and curled it into a small bed for her. All right, Mikata-chan, let's go to bed. Naruto said, and Makata slunk into Naruto's arms, and the blonde put her in the center of the jacket. He at least knew that reptiles like Makata needed warmth, so he hoped the body heat from his jacket would be okay for her. Makata didn't seem to mind it at all and went back to sleep while Naruto closed out the light. He could only imagine his life as a genin using all the things that his friends and family gave him. He would get strong and he would protect all his loved ones. 4 years later, Naruto_, come on, it's time for your genin exams. If you don't do these, you'll be held back for another year. Kurenai yelled, and Naruto was up and about. The blonde grinned as he came through the door. He was taller than 4 years ago. Naruto had been taking the academy course for 4 years, and now would be the time that he could graduate. He would be a genin, and he would love it. All right, Ka-san. Hey, do you know where Mata-as? Na asked as put on his clothes. Kurenai chuckled as she pointed to the floor. Na looked down as he saw Makata slither between his legs, making the blonde smile. He knelt down and watched as Makata slithered up his arm and slowly wrapped around it while forking her tongue multiple times. Na had trained with Makata, and with Anko's training, she turned Makata into quite the serpent. Makata was a lot bigger than before, but she, for some reason, could still fit Naruto's arm. The blonde had called Makata his familiar since he always had her around. All right, Ka-san. I guess I'll see you later. Good luck on your mission, Miss Jonin, Naruto said, and Kurenai chuckled at him while she drank some coffee. Stop trying to be funny and get going. Show them something good for me, Kurenai said, and Naruto nodded. He had gotten a lot stronger thanks to Anko and Kurenai. He had quite a few judas under his belt, and he had become proficient with his Kodaki. Naruto strapped his Kodaki to his legs and walked out. Naruto ran for the academy and easily didn't care for the glares since he could match them with his own. The blonde had been working on his gaze and most people could agree that his was almost as cold as Kurenai's. Only she had the experience to back it up. It's a good day for the academy, isn't it, Makata-chan? Na asked and his female snake forked her tongue out. ISS suppose it. ISS Makata said to him. Oh, did Naruto forget to mention that he could talk to snakes? It seemed to be one of the benefits to being a snake summoner. He could understand all snakes just like Anko could. It was real nice to talk with Makata like this. You really need to work on the way you use your S's, Naruto said, and Makata slithered her body for her head to appear near his face. I'm SS still learning. Give me a break, she said. And Na chuckled as he entered the academy. He had seen everyone in the room and he took his usual seat by the window. Na had been tied with Sasaki for Rookie of the Year, which never could outdo the other. When it came to sparring Sasaki, and Naruto always tied, apparently Sasuke said that Makoto was really creative with her training methods, so that's why he could keep up with Naruto. Hey, trademark, Naruto said, sitting down behind him like always. Sasaki grinned and turned around while giving Naruto a smug look on his face. Hey loser, I thought you weren't going to show up. Too scared to lose, Sasaki said while Na rolled his eyes. Not on your life, T. Naruto said to him, and Sasaki simply smirked. Everyone was gathered around as usual, but Sakura had stayed further away since Naruto had gotten Makata. He remembered how the other students reacted to seeing Makata. It was the funniest thing he had ever seen since anything. Sasaki had personally thanked Naruto since he no longer had Sakura or Rhino sitting too close to him since they were afraid of Naruto's familiar. It was like a fangirl repellent. Well, she was sometimes. Some girls thought the snake was cute and it got Na more attention than he wanted. Hell, he might have had some of Sasuke's fangirls and even some hidden fangirl group though. Speaking of Sasaki, the Uchiha had gotten stronger also. Na, even with all he had accomplished at times, still had trouble with Sasuke's strength. When Sasaki told Na his training menu given by his mother, the blonde flinched and wondered what kind of mother did such things to her son, but Sasaki said it was what he wanted for training. Soon, Naruto's other friends came in and sat in their rows. After them was Iruka and Mizuki, who came into the room, and just like Kurenai and Anko thought, some people tried to mess with Naruto's grades. But the Iruka spotted it all and told them both, which made Anko use persuasive methods on the teachers about doing things to her little brother. All right, everyone. It has been a long trip and I'm glad that all of you made it. Now then, we will conduct the Genin exams. I'll call out everyone name and we'll test you on the Kawari, Bunin, and Hench. Then we will hold spares and shuriken target practice. Now then, the first person is Oruruka began, and everyone had their turn until it came down to the last two people. Sasaki Uchiha come forward said, and Sasuke turned to Na. Don't forget that bet, loser, Sasaki said, and Na narrowed his eyes with a smirk. Loser does whatever the winner wants for a month. Na said, and Sasaki nodded with a smirk across his face as he stood in front of Iruka. Sasaki had gotten out of his family depression with Makoto's help and Naruto's rivalry. It made him give up the revenge on his brother for what he did. Right now, he didn't want to ruin his relationship with Na or his mother. They were really Sasuke's only way of not going to revenge. He chatted with the others, but he didn't have that strong a connection like he did with Na. Sasaki Kawari, Oruruka ordered. Sasaki switched places with a chair and grinned while Iruka continued. Henge, he ordered, and Sasaki changed into a perfect Iruka with no flaw anywhere. He changed back, making Iruka smile. All right, Bunken, Iruka said, and Sasaki created 3 good clones before dismissing them. All right, Sasaki Uchiha. A perfect score, Iruka said, and Sasaki grinned. Sasuke's fangirls screamed their congratulations for him, which included Sakura making it extremely loud. He walked back up to his seat and grinned while he passed Naruto a note that read, "Beat that loser." Na grinned while Makata lowly hissed. H is quite arrogant, I think, she said, still hissing her S's pronunciation. But it was all right for now. Yeah, but you like him anyways, Naruto said, and Iruka grinned. Last as Naruto Ueki, Iruka said, and Na got to his feet. He quickly walked over to Iruka and gave a small grin that was aimed at Sasaki before standing in front of Iruka. All right, Naruto can wear me, Iruka said. And Na switched places with Sasuke, making the Uchiha and several other classmates laugh and gasp. The blonde then switched back while Sasaki snorted. I'll make you pay for that, loser, Sasaki said. But Naruto waved him off. Very good. Now, Bunken, Oruruka said, and Naruto smiled. He crossed his fingers and yelled, Kage Bunch no Jutsu. Na yelled, making 5 clones appear next to him as they gave Iruka a thumbs up. But someone protested. Iruka, that is not the bunch technique. Tell Na that he should do the bunch or he doesn't pass. I know he wants to graduate, but we have to be fair. Mizuki said while Na narrowed his eyes. Oruruka sighed as he shook his head. Mizuki, you know as well as I do that the Kage Bunken is a better variation of the bunch. The fact that it's harder to do makes it all the more why Naruto should get credit. Now then, let's continue. Nah. Lastly, Henge, Oruruka said, and Naruto nodded. He gathered chakra and a puff came, making Iruka raise an eyebrow before he chuckled. Na hanged right into Ibiki in all his interrogation outfit. The resemblance was really uncanny between the two. Everyone widened their eyes while Na changed back. Very good, Na. A perfect score, Oruruka said. And just like Sasake, Naruto's fangirls screamed, also saying how cool the blonde was to them. Na sat behind Sasake and gave him the note, which said, "I can do this all day, T." Sasake crunched the note and chuckled. He was going to make Na eat those words. All right, that's the end of the first part. Everyone follow us to the sparring mats, Iruka said, and everyone followed out. Having gotten to their desired spot, everyone gathered around while Iruka raised his hand. Who wants to go first? Iruka asked, though he knew what the answer to that question was. So immediately, Sasake and Naruto raised their hands. The two boys grinned at each other and stood on the mat. Everyone gathered even closer while the girls had hearts in their eyes over the two boys. Sasake, is going to kick Naruto's butt, this time. He's so hot, a girl said while another scoffed. Please, Naruto, is the best. Those whisker marks make him so cute, another girl squealed. Na and Sasake sighed as their fangirls continued their rants. It was so amazing how silly this could all be. But both weren't thinking about that at the moment. Well, loser, it seems that I get to really settle this with you, Sasake said, and Naruto chuckled. I'd like to see you try it, T. Naruto said as Makata slithered off his arm and into the arms of a girl who wasn't afraid of her, or rather found her to be cute than creepy. Iruruka smiled as he raised his hand. As for the conditions, since you both will disregard this rule anyway, you are to only use dank techniques if you must. The fight will last half an hour and I'll judge the entire thing. Now then, are you both ready? Iruka asked, glancing at Sasake. The Uchiha nodded with a smirk and then he turned to the blonde who nodded also. All right then, sparring match began. Iruka yelled as the match to determine the Rookie of the Year began. Na and Sasake charged each other as the entire class watched them fight. Everyone knew they were the best in the class, and while they sparred multiple times, they had never officially beaten each other. So, this was the first time they could fight like they wanted. All the girls screamed for the two boys to do the best. Sasake threw out a punch to Na, but the blonde blocked it and sent a kick to Sasuke's side. The Uchi quickly countered as he grabbed Naruto's foot, but not before giving a small grin. You've got to try harder, loser, Sasuke said, and Na chuckled at him. Come on, trademark, you know me. I like to warm up before I have some fun, Naruto said as he used his free leg to jump into the air. He quickly twisted his body, causing his trapped leg to get free from Sasuke's grip. While the Uchiha backflipped and took out a shuriken. Naruto smirked as he took out both of his kodaki. Sasake threw the shuriken before going through a single hand sign. Cage shuriken jutsu. Sasake yelled as he sent the multiple waves of clone shuriken at Na. The blonde quickly maneuvered through the countless shuriken as he weaved his hand signs. Sasake was ready for anything as Na charged him. The Uchiha quickly went through his own hand signs as Iruka and Mizuki saw the tiger seal. They moved the children back a bit before Sasake yelled, Kaden Goku no Jutsu. The brunette yelled, sending a fireball at Na. The fire was a controlled one that didn't go out past the mat, but that left Naruto inside while Sasake chuckled. How is that, loser? Sasaki asked before he saw the fires dissipate. He gasped when Naruto come out with half his shirt burned off, giving the girls an amazing view as they all K over his body. Na wiped his brow from his sweat and chuckled. Not bad, Sasuke-chan, but I think you underestimated me, Naruto said as he finished his hand signs and slammed the ground. No, Shin no Oyana, Naruto yelled as the ground beneath Sasuke crumbled. The Uchiha gasped as he felt down a sudden hole in the ground. Naruto chuckled as he heard Sasaki curse as he clung to the outer reaches of the hole. He looked down and saw multiple kunai at the bottom and narrowed his eyes. All right, loser. Two can play at that game, Sasaki said as he climbed out, but before he could get out, he saw a swirl of leaves appear around him. He saw Na disappear, and before long, the Uchiha was suddenly sinking into the floor. He gasped and tried to get free, but it was like some type of living thing as it started to swallow him up. Sasaki cursed before he saw Naruto slowly come out of the floor with one of his kodaki in his hands. Say your praise, Naruto told him as he lunged forward. Sasaki closed his eyes but nothing ever came. He opened his eyes to see himself on the floor with Naruto smiling at him. I win. Sasaki. Isn't Genjutsu a wonderful thing? Na asked as Sasaki widened his eyes. Genjutsu? Sasaki asked and Naruto nodded. The Uchiha had been in a Genjutsu ever since he threw that first kana at Naruto. Sasaki growled as Iruka nodded. Winner of the fight, Naruto Ueaki, Iruka said, and the Naruto Yui Uzumaki fangirls cheered for the blonde while Sasuke's fangirls consoled him. Na held out his hand and Sasaki took it as the Uchiha stood to his feet. Not bad, loser. Don't think this settles anything. One day we're going to fight without limits or instructors. By the way, what was that genjutsu you used? Sasaki asked and Naruto chuckled. It was a small D-rank genjutsu Kurani taught him during his training. It's called Genjutsu Chinbatsu Shida Akumu Illusion Sunken Nightmare Trap. Naruto said and Sasaki raised an eyebrow. A simple D-rank that Kasen taught me. Looks like it worked well. I guess my chakra control is as good as Kasen said it was. Naruto said, mentally thankful that Kurenai taught him the strictest chakra control methods so he could be taught her techniques. Well, that was a good fight both of you and it only took you about 10 to 15 minutes. A good time. Now then, who's next? Iruka asked while Naruto and Sasaki sat down. It didn't take long for everyone to finish their parts, mostly because no one had gone all the way to 30 full minutes. In fact, the longest fight of them all was Naruto and Sasuke's fight. They might have used the entire 30 minutes if they could have used more higher-ranked techniques, but that was beside the point. Soon, in about 3 or 4 hours, everyone had their turns and quickly proceeded to the test site for the shuriken and kai target practice, which was relatively easy for a select few of people. Naruto had easily gotten a 10 out of 10, and the same could be said for Sasaki. No one else got that perfect, and everyone was around 7, going down to 4. The entire class had gone and now they were all back in the classroom waiting for the names to be announced. So Sasaki, it's agreed. You're treating us all to ramen when we leave. Naruto said. Sasaki grumbled, but he nodded while the blonde sent a thumbs up to his other friends. Still, I didn't know that you could use genjutsu, Ka said. And Na chuckled. Really? My Ka-chan is the genjutsu mistress and she trains me. So you didn't think that she might teach me some genjutsu tricks? Na asked while Ka rubbed the back of his head. I guess you've got a point there, the Inuzuka said and Na nodded. Naruto Yui as Uzumaki, an instructor said, and the blonde walked out waving to his friends. Everyone waved back as Naruto walked through the halls. He came up to the room. Aruka and Mizuki were in the room together. Congratulations, Na. You've passed with a perfect score, and as such, you are the Rookie of the Year. Here is your headband, Aruka said, handing the blonde a black Konoha headband instead of the standard blue that most came in. The Konoha symbol was engraved in a fine metal over the headband, showing the exquisite metal. Na bowed with a small smile on his face. Thank you, Aruka. Sense, Mizuki-sensei. I'm going to make you proud, Dad. Bo, Naruto said, leaving the room. Aruka chuckled along with Mizuki, but the latter mentally growled at Naruto for passing his exams. Damn it. Now I can get him to get the scroll of sealing. Oh, whatever. I'll just get it myself, Mizuki said in thought as a small smile came across his face, which confused Aruka slightly. Nonetheless, he was happy that Naruto had passed. The blonde came a long way from being a child. A few hours later, Council Room Saratobi and the shinobi part of his council came together while the Sandaime Hokage pulled out a sheet of paper. I've received this year's Genin hopefuls from Aruka. It seems we have a good pick this time. Serbi said, and everyone nodded. They all waited for Sarutobi to announce the names and the old Hokage did just that. He said everyone name who passed, but everyone was only really interested in their kids and specifically Naruto for some reason. So, Kurana's kid became the Rookie of the Year, huh? Sunam said and Makoto chuckled. Well, what do you expect? He and Sasaki have been the best students for the past 4 years. It's not that shocking, Makoto replied. Everyone seemed to agree with her while Sarutobi smoked his pipe. So, what are the teams for this year? Serbi asked as everyone looked over the list. Well, it seems that Shikamaru and Ka were the lowest, but I know my son and he's always been a slacker. Should we do the Ino Shika Cho trio as always? Shikaku asked while Inoiki and Shua thought it over. Maybe, but what if we paired the 2 top male students with the highest female student? Shua said, but Shibi shook his head. That is an illogical choice. That team would be too strong, and we always want balance between our genin. So, we always paired the highest scorer with the lowest scorer along with the highest female scorer, and it should stay that way, Shibi said, and everyone nodded in agreement with him. So, what are we going to do? Some asked before Hiashi stood to his feet and looked at the paper. After looking at for a few minutes, the Heianga gave everyone else a stern look. I suggest that we go with this plan, Hiashi said as everyone widened their eyes. It was a strange plan, but everyone didn't seem to mind it at all. With Naruto, everyone sighed as they patted their stomach while Sasaki sweat dropped at his wallet. He just lost like a month's worth of allowance treating everyone. That was so good, Shoji said while Ka grinned. Food always tastes better when someone else is paying for it, the Inuzuka said, making everyone else nod in agreement with him. Naruto sighed in contempt before walking off. Well, guys, I'm going to go. Ka-chan wants me to clean up the place while she's gone. I'll see you all tomorrow for team placement, the blonde said, and everyone nodded, waving goodbye before running off in their separate directions. Naruto opened his jacket as he saw Makata curled into the usual ball near his stomach. The blonde grinned as he walked up the stairs to his home and fished in his pocket for his keys. He managed to find them and quickly opened the door. Na got inside and saw that the place was vacant. He also saw the note on the wall reminding him of his chores. So, the blonde quickly got out of his clothes and laid them on his bedroom. It was then that Makata slithered out of his jacket and onto the floor. She leaned up in an upright position. Got chores? SS? She asked, and Naruto nodded, walking around the room while Makata followed him. Yeah, but it won't take long. You can take a nap if you want, Na said as he dispelled Makata's hench. The snake puffed and quickly grew another 4 in. Naruto had used the henge technique for Makata since she said that she would continue to get bigger throughout her life. When Na asked her why many other snakes weren't big, she simply said there isn't enough food for that and they simply don't wish to be that big. But she said that she would grow at least 4 or 5 inches every month, which made Na wonder how large she would actually get, but that was for later. Na quickly summoned 2 clones to help him with his chores. He quickly washed the dishes, swept the floor, and wiped off the counters. He also dusted off the table and some of the shelves. It was a slightly taxing job, but the blonde didn't seem to mind in the least. It took Naruto about an hour or 2, but he was finished with everything and was currently in his room looking over a scroll that Kurenai had given him to read while she was gone. She said she had a mission to do, so she wouldn't be back till later. Na looked over the scroll and saw it was for some C-rank Genjutsu tricks that Kurenai had come up with and perfected during her life. The scroll was categorized from D ranks up to A ranks. Naruto decided to start on the D ranks and C ranks so as not to get overwhelmed by anything. He read through the scroll for a bit before he saw something creeping on the ground. Na narrowed his eyes and saw a small rat on the floor. He knew his mother hated rats and the sort, so she was happy that Makata was around. The place didn't actually have rats and mice as a problem, but on the occasion that it did, then Makata was more than happy to have her dinner. Na sighed while he didn't even look from his scroll but gave a hidden smirk. Makata dinner. Na yelled and immediately Makata slithered into the room. One thing about her is that she was a relatively fast snake. She was probably the second fastest snake of her kind. Marta noticed the rat and forked her tongue. She then proceeded to slither under the bed where it was dark so it would camouflage her black skin. Makata snickered while she forked her tongue out again. Thank you, Naruto. Sama, Makata said while Naruto continued to read his scroll. Out of the corner of his eye, he watched Makata lunge for the snake and bid it, sinking her venomous fangs into its skin. She slowly devoured the rat while Naruto chuckled, making her turn around. You really do love rats and that stuff, don't you? Na asked, and Makata simply settled for staring at her blonde partner. What? I'm a snake. I love these things, Marta said with her mouth slightly full. Naruto shook his head at her and simply continued to read while Makata began the slow process of eating the rat. Later, Kurenai sighed as she came through the door. Her latest mission was a big pain in the damn stupid Damu and his complaining, but there was nothing she could do about it. She was a jonin and so there were things like this. She was about to complain, but then she saw the room and smiled when she saw how neat it looked. She was glad that Na followed her instructions on his chores. He was her son after all, so why wouldn't he listen to them? Speaking of her blonde son, Kurenai looked around for Naruto and opened the door to his room. She lightly smiled when she saw Na sleeping while her scroll was next to him and Makata was coiled up on his stomach. Kurenai closed the door to let him sleep, but she didn't know she closed it a little hard, waking up the blonde. Na yawned and opened his eyes. He had taken a rather long nap after going through his mother's scroll. He had been practicing them for a while before taking a break, which went into the night. Na got to his feet and gently placed Makata on the bed. He opened the door to his room and saw his mother on the couch. "Hey, Kaa-chan, you're home," Na said, making Kurana turn around. "Hey, Naruto, did I wake you up?" Kurani asked, and Na shook his head. Even though she kind of did, but he had to wake up anyway. "No, I just came to get some water and go back to bed." "Oka-chan, I passed the Genin exams and I was named the Rookie of the Year," Naruto said, and Kurenai stood to her feet. She patted her son's head before giving him a hug. "That's great, Naruto. I knew you could do it. I also know that tomorrow is when your sense are assigned to you. I also took up the job even though I'm a little new to it." "So, did anything happen today?" Kurani asked, taking a small sip of some tea she brewed. "Nothing really. I was just studying the day away." "Well, I'm going to go to bed, Kassen. See you tomorrow," Naruto said to her. Kurani nodded as she watched her son leave the room with a cup of water and go back into his room. "I still wonder about this idea that Serbia-sama has for them. I hope Naruto's up for it," Kurini said to herself before she got up and was ready to go to bed. Also, next morning, Kurani and Naruto were currently walking towards the academy. They were going there for Naruto's team placement and Kurani's team selection. Both walked into the academy with Kurenai telling Na to go inside and she would be with the other Jonin in another room. Na understood her and walked inside. He saw all his friends and he saw the other kids chatting amongst themselves before the girls laid their eyes on the blonde and blushed while Na sighed. He sat in his original seat behind Sasaki. "So, who do you guys think will be on your team?" Na asked, resting his head on the table. Everyone wasn't sure how to answer him since no one really had anything in mind. They all simply shrugged their shoulders while Na glared at Sasaki. "Well, I hope you aren't on my team. How would I know that I can kick you if I stay near you the whole time?" Na wondered while Sasaki merely snickered and leaned back in his chair. "Whatever, loser. If I was with you, then I would leave you in the dust," Sasaki said. And Naruto rolled his eyes before chuckling softly as everyone saw Iruka come into the room. "Sorry I'm late everyone. I have some grave news. It seems that Mizuki tried to steal the scroll of sealing and leave the village with it. I just want to remind you all about the pressures of being shinobi. Learn from your success and your failures. This will make you fine shinobi." Or started while making a little speech which Naruto slightly missed. "Now then, it's time for everyone to be given the Jonin Sensei. Team 1 will consist of Iruka began while Naruto talked with Mikata about something just along the line of techniques they could use together. Team 7 will consist of Ka Inuka, Sakura Haruno and Sasaki Uchiha. Your sensei will be Kakashi Haki, Iruka said, and Sasaki smirked. He didn't mind it at all. He rather welcomed it. It would give him the chance to see how good he could do without his mother or Naruto around. Next teammate will consist of Shikamaru, Nara, Hinata, Hyuga, and Naruto Ueki. Your team is a bit of a special case, so your sensei will be Anko Midarashi, Iruka said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow. Anko was supposed to be a Tokubetu-jan. She shouldn't be able to do this. Team 9 is still in circulation. So I will move on to Team 10, which will consist of Enino Yamanaka, Joji Akamaiki and Shino Aram. Your sensei will be Kurenai Yuhi. Asuma said while Sakura cheered for getting to be with Sasuke, making some of the girls scowl at her. Having assigned everyone the teams, everyone waited for their respective sensei to come in. But Naruto and his friends watched the other kids leave with their sensei. But they sensei were at least 1 hour late. Man, what's taking him so long? Ha asked, gritting his teeth, making everyone nod. Maybe some trouble came up. Hinata said while the 9 waited for their sensei to arrive. It was then that the door opened to show Makoto in the room. Ka-san, why are you here? Sasaki asked, a little confused before Makoto smiled. She leaned on the wall, leaving Sasuke's question hanging in the air. And before long, everyone's sensei came into the room. All right. Hello everyone. We're your Jonin sensei and we'll be looking after you. But before we begin, we have a special order from Hokage-sama. You see, he believes that there is a condition for you 9. From now on, you aren't separate teams, but all one big team, Makoto said in making Naruto and his friends raise their eyebrows. What do you mean we're all one big team? What about the other kids? Ka asked, and Makoto explained. Well, recently Hokage-sama has started a small plan of action. It was announced to all John and Sensei yesterday. It's called a Genin Scramble. We take the clan heirs and the people who scored the highest on the exams to be selected. Now then, what is the Genin Scramble, you ask? Makoto said as she was about to answer their questions. What happens is that you all are going to be scrambled every 1 month with the Jonin. It will create trust between all of you. Please understand that this is a new arrangement and the other Genin don't know about it at all. However, in the interest of other things, you will also be scrambled with Team 9. They have been informed of this as well. If this goes well, then we will be able to do this in the future, Makoto said before Shikamaru raised his hand. So, what you're saying is that Hokage-sama made a new plan for the academy, and it's called a Genin Scramble to emphasize more trust and teamwork between ourselves. Man, what a drag, Shikamaru said, making some people chuckle. Well, in any case, the end result is that we hope more missions will be successful as you grow with each other. The only thing here is that the 2 highest academy students at the time can never be on the same team unless authorized. So, Naruto and Sasaki won't be partners unless Hokage-sama allows it to happen. Now, then let's get going. We have a lot of work to do, the Jonin said, making the Genin even more confused. But they all nodded and left. Naruto, Shikamaru and Hinata followed Anko out of the room and to a separate room. Kurenai, why are you teaching? Don't you have to be a Jonin to do this? Naruto asked and Anko grinned with a slight nod. That's right Nukan, but I was given some special permission to do this. As it turns out, Asuma was supposed to do it, but he suddenly got called away and won't be back for quite a while. Makoto is going to serve as a subjin instructor to any of us who need her around. All right, I understand, Na said, and Anko nodded. She quickly took them into a room since Kakashi claimed that he wanted the rooftops. Everyone sat down while Anko leaned on the wall. All right, we will have introductions now. So, let's begin with our names, hobbies, likes, dislikes, and our dreams for the future. I guess I'll go first, Anko said, making everyone nod. All right, I'm Anko Midarashi. I like Dango, teasing others, my snakes, NA-chan, and my little brother right there. I dislike those who hate Dango, a certain pedo snake man, and anyone who dares to look down on me or my little brother. My hobby is training with my snakes, hanging with my fellow Jonin, and playing a few pranks. I don't have any dreams other than to make you all outstanding shinobi who know how to straighten up and grab the world by the balls, Anko said with a cheeky grin on her face. Naruto shook his head at his sister, but he found her funny nonetheless. Anko turned to Shikamaru and pointed. U-turn, mister. I copied my sensei's hairstyle, Enko said, making Shikamaru roll his eyes before he gave a small yawn. I'm Shikamaru N. I like taking naps and watching the clouds. My dislikes are too troublesome to mention. My hobby is the same thing as my likes, so I won't waste my breath. My dream is to simply be a good clan head for my family and make my father proud. The Na said as he saw Hinata gently smile while Naruto nodded. Anko grinned before turning to Hinata. All right, your turn. Enko said and Hinata nodded. I am Hinata Hyuga. I like tea ceremonies, my family, and a few other things. I dislike those who look down on me and who don't work hard. I also dislike that my family is divided into branches. I don't really have any hobbies. My dream is to unite the main branch and the side branch of my family, Hinata said. And Anko nodded, grinning like mad. All right, that's good. I'm going to have to work on that confidence, though, Enko said, keeping the last part to herself. She then turned to her little brother and smiled. Your turn, Foxy-kun, Enko said, making Naro slightly smile. I'm Naruto Yuiaki. I like Mata, my snake familiar ramen, Ankon Ka-chan and my snake summons. I dislike those who abuse others, those who don't train or work hard. My hobby is practicing my Genjutsu that my Ka-san teaches me along with practicing collaboration techniques with Makata. Naruto said as his snake familiar grazed his cheek before slipping onto the table. My dream is to show everyone the awesome power of Genjutsu just like Khan wants. Also, Naruto finished and Anko nodded with a small clap of her hands. All right, everyone. That was great. Now then, we can begin. Unlike the others, I don't think those damn D-rank missions are enough to get any kind of experience. So, when we do missions, we will be doing them on the real deal or none at all. Now, then we will head to my personal training ground for some training. Naruto knows how I train, so we'll just do this as we go along. I know Naruto-kun's training style, so I'll be working with Hinata and Shikamaru the most. But don't think I won't give you something to do either. Now then, let's get going to the Forest of Death. Enko said, making Shikamaru and Hinata gulp. Isn't that place like the most dangerous training ground? Shikamaru asked, but Anko waved him off. Hey, when I was your age, I had been through the entire forest, as did most of the other genin. Just because we have peace right now doesn't mean we can be relaxed even for a second or it will come back to kick us in our, Enko said as she left the room while Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru followed her. Forest of Death. Enko brought her group to training ground 44 and they all passed the fence. Enko brought them to the safe part of the training ground while they all sat down. All right. No, normally I would test you with this stupid bell thing to see if you had good teamwork or not, but having teamwork on the spot incomplete bull to me. So, we'll be working on your teamwork throughout the month that you're in my possession. Now then, Shikamaru Hinata, how good is your chakra control? Enko asked and the two looked at each other for a second while Naruto watched them. Well, my chakra control is all right, I guess. I know I could do better, but I find it a drag to try, Shikamaru said before it was Hinata's turn. I still need work with mine. I know could be better also, Hinata said and Anko nodded. She brushed a hand through her purple hair before turning to Na. All right, Na, since you're by far the most experienced here, I want you to bring Hinata and Shikamaru up to snuff while I go prepare some things, Enko said getting to her feet. Count on it, Dad. Bio, Naruto told her as Anko vanished. Naruto turned back to Hinata and Shikamaru before handing them both a kunai. See if you can't climb this tree, Naruto said, making the two genin raise their eyebrows. How does that teach you chakra control? Shikamaru asked while Naruto glared at him. The Naru widened his eyes and nodded. Oh, without using the hands. I got it. Sigh. This is such a drag. But I guess I don't have a choice. If I leave, then Mom will have my head. So, how far do we have to go? Shikamaru asked and Naruto thought it over as he walked up one of the larger trees. How about here at this branch? Na asked, making Hinata and Shikamaru nod. The two grabbed their kunai and added chakra to their feet. Both of them were from prestigious families, so they were taught about techniques at a younger age. Both knew how to add chakra to specific points of the body, so they quickly ran up the tree. Both got pretty far as Naruto was surprised, but they soon came crashing down, or rather, they backflipped away from the tree. Well, it's harder than I thought, Shikamaru said, and Hinata nodded. Naruto chuckled as he sat up at the edge of the tree. Yeah, these trees are special and unlike normal trees, these are a lot more harder to climb and require a lot more chakra control than with regular trees. Shikamaru cursed while Hinata sighed. They should have expected this and Naruto-kun, how do you know so much? Hinata asked and Naruto chuckled before he jumped down. Are you kidding? When I first started, I hid my head on the ground so many times it was a pain. But I knew that if I wanted to master Ka's techniques at Genjutsu, then I would have to do this. Simple as that, Dad. Bio, Na said. And before long, Makata slithered down his arm and stood upright. Naruto-sama. I'm going like always. I'll be back later, Makata said, and Na nodded. He watched her slither off into the forest. She had always done this for the past 2 years. Where is your snake going? Naruto-kun. Hinata asked, being a little curious. Naruto chuckled and rubbed the back of his head. Oh, that well Maka is my familiar and because of that she's doing some type of training that the snakes make her do. It's to help he become a better familiar for me. Normally the snakes would have assigned me one but both Makata and I said we were okay with her doing it so she's doing their training. There's some snake in this forest that helps her I guess. Naro said with a shrug of his shoulders. Shikamaru and Hinata nodded aimlessly with his answer as Naruto continued to watch them. A few hours later, Anko returned to see Hinata and Shikamaru on the ground panting while Naruto was grinning like mad at them both. He waved to Anko and smiled. They both managed to make it up this tree. Anko nay, you really should have seen them. They were great, Dad. Bio, Na said, and Anko grinned. All right, that's good. Now, we're going to have a small exercise. You three are going to go into the forest and retrieve 3 kunai that have been embedded at specific points in the forest. It will give you the chance to familiarize yourself with the territory. For your safety, I place them at easier locations to reach for all of you. So, I expect a success from all of you, Anko said, and the 3 nodded. Na, Shikamaru, and Hinata ran off into the woods and were ready to begin. They had been resting for a while, so it was a good enough break for everyone. Na hadn't been idle either. He had taken Kurana's scroll with him for a small lesson to teach himself, but that was for later. Currently, Naruto was ahead of Shikamaru and Hinata. He stopped on a branch and turned to Hinata. Hinata-chan, would you mind? Naruto asked, and Hinata closed her eyes with a nod. By organ, Hinata yelled as she scanned the entire area. She found all the kanai, but like Anko said, they weren't exactly in easy places to get. All right, there is one on top of that tree. Another one in a nest full of big insects, and the other is on the ground right there, Hinata said, pointing to it. Na narrowed his eyes since he knew Anko quite well. All right, it's not that obvious, and Ankun isn't that nice to just offer us the caney. Hang on, Na said as he summoned a cage bunken and sent it to retrieve the caney. It did as it was told and grabbed the caney, but as Na thought, the clone was starting to sink as it passed the kanai to Naruto before the blonde dismissed it. Quicksand, that's just like Ankun. Naruto said as he gave Hinata the kanai. The Hyuga took it into her pouch as they headed for the second one. Na looked up and grabbed Shikamaru's arm, startling the Nara. What are you doing? Shikamaru asked, and Naruto's eyes gleamed. Hey, I'm using teamwork. Hinata-chan searches for them while you and I get them. Simple, right? Now get up that tree. Na yelled as he flung Shikamaru, making the Naru scream. Man, this is such a drag, Shikamaru said as he grabbed the kanai and came down the tree while he smacked Naruto over the head. Did you think that was funny? It wasn't, man, Shikamaru said, and Naruto chuckled at him. Shikamaru sighed as he handed Hinata the kanai. The Hyuga girl stored it in her pouch, and the three quickly made it towards the insect nest. Na had to admit that his sister was really mean at times. The place she sent them was in one of the more aggressive insect nests. Some of them, if close enough to you, could suck away your chakra, and the sheer numbers made for a quick death to anyone who wasn't ready for them. All right, we're here. So, what do we do now? Shikamaru asked while Hinata gulped. The blonde thought it over for a second and smiled. All right, follow my idea. We're only going to have one good shot at this, so we have to make it count since they're not expecting us. Do you two see that small mark on the tree? Naruto asked, making Shikamaru and Hinata looked at the small cut made on the tree by Anko. Yeah, what about it? Naruto-kun. Hinata asked, not seeing what this had to do with anything. Naturally, Naruto was mad at either of them since they didn't know how dangerous this forest could be when it wanted. Enkone told me one time that these insects have a large chakra sensory. So, if you pass this scratch mark, then they will know where you are immediately. So, we only get one shot at a plan. Too bad I don't really have one at the moment, Naruto said, making Hinata and Shikamaru sigh. The Naru then took his thinking pose and closed his eyes while he brought the tips of his fingers together. Shikamaru sat in silence for a few minutes before smiling and opening his eyes. All right, I have an idea. Naruto, do you have a Genjutsu? Shikamaru asked, and the blonde nodded. Yeah, Genjutsu is my main thing, but I've got quite a few Genjutsu skills. You got something for me? Naruto asked, and Shikamaru rubbed the back of his head while he yawned. He immediately took out 3 kana and attached them to some wire as he told Naruto and Hinata his idea. The 3 stood a few feet from the insect nest and nodded as Shikamaru threw the kanai at 3 precise points on the trees around them. Go Naruto, Shikamaru said as Naruto did multiple hand signs. Kaiden Goku Nojutsu. Naruto yelled, sending the small fire at the wires. It traveled along said wires and slammed around the trees, causing a small fire to brew around the place of the insect nest. The insects swarmed in a frenzy around the fire as Naruto, Shikamaru, and Hinata ran inside. Naruto's Kaiden Jutsu wouldn't last long, so they had to move fast. Hinata used her Byakugan to find and capture the kanai in her hands. As everyone quickly ran away, not wanting to wait around for the insects to learn of their presence. The three continued running for a bit longer and sighed as Hinata held the kunai in her hands. Did we get away? Shikamaru asked and Naruto nodded. All right then, let's get this kana back to Anko immediately. Naruto told them. Shikamaru and Hinata nodded as they ran back to Anko Kumoguk. He was known for a lot of things. He was called the fastest man alive throughout the entire elemental nations. And he was called the strongest of any Kumo nin. He was the Raikage of Kumo, or as some people called him, and he was currently in his council room thinking over some things. Is that Hyuga incident still hanging over us? I asked, and some of his council nodded that it was. Contrary to popular belief, even though Kumo at the time had known that Konoha had killed one of their shinobi and asked for compensation or war, they also knew that it was mainly their fault in the entire thing. Raikage-sama, Konoha knows we were the ones who tried something first, and as such, we are at odds with each other. You know as well as anyone that the Hyuga clan resents us for what we did. In fact, we should be thankful that Konoha hasn't asked for some compensation also. But you know that they think about it all the time, a councilwoman said, making the others nod aside and pinch the bridge of his nose. So if they never bring it up, what are we going to do about it? I asked, not seeing much of a big deal in anything. Raikage-sama, you know that Konoha has taken a few of our normal missions and clients. They are rumored to be the strongest of the elemental nations. After all, they do contain the largest and strongest Genjutsu, a man said and found this to be true. He leaned back in his chair and thought it over for a few seconds. He sighed and leaned back up before pounding his right arm on the table. So, what you want to have some good relations to Konoha? How do we even know that they will agree to meet with us? I asked, and some of the others weren't sure. Soon, someone stood to their feet and raised their hand. I propose a political marriage, the person said, making a narrow his eyes and growl. He hated political marriages with a passion. He didn't like anyone being forced to marry someone else. There's no way I can agree to that. You all know how I feel about those. I told them all, making his voice quake throughout the room while most people gulped. Raikage-sama, please keep this in perspective of the situation. They wouldn't deal with us if we didn't do this. Raikage-sama, your predecessor, the Sandaime Raikage, was the person who wanted the Bakugan and went so far as to do this. Do you really want to start a war with Konoha, Raikage-sama? The man said and gritted his teeth. He hated having to see the perspective in it all, but he knew his council members were right. He sighed and calmed down enough to listen to everyone else. So, who would we send? In the interest, maybe it shouldn't be one of our civilians or top shinobi, said, still not liking the idea, but he didn't see much of a choice. Aside again while his council thought it over. What about our top genin? If I'm not mistaken, then she will be perfect for this, a woman said and raised an eyebrow. Mabui, bring me the list of all the genin. Said as a dark-skinned female with whitish-gray hair came out next to him. Yes, Raikage-sama, she said as she quickly left for a few minutes. So have our top genin marry their top genin. Isn't that a little out of the way? Someone else asked, bringing everyone's attention to them. How else are we going to do this? It's not like we can choose something like this. Another council person said as Mabui came back with the list and handed it to her. The Raikage looked it over and narrowed his eyes. I know this girl, she's Simui. She showed amazing skill in every category of our genin test. But even so, I won't have it if Konoha isn't up to Simui's level. I said to everyone, "So, what do you want?" Reikage-sama, someone asked in a grin like mad. It's quite simple what we're going to do. Has Kumo ever participated in a Kona Hachunen exam? I asked and the members nodded. Yes, but only 3 times. What are you planning? Reikage-sama, someone asked him and smirked again. He got up from his seat and walked away, leaving his council to wonder what he was planning. Mabui summoned Samui and her team immediately. As said and Mabui nodded. If this all worked out then it would be alright even if he didn't like political marriages at all. Back in Konoha, Na and his teammates were deadbeat tired. Having completed the exercise that Anko had given them. She had spent the entire day drilling into them important teamwork exercises that they would need on their missions. By the end of the day, they were all sweating and huffing. Come on, Gaki. You all can't be tired yet, right? Enko asked while everyone settled for glaring at her, making the snake mistress chuckle while she rubbed the back of her head. Are you kidding? You made us increase our stamina by running from one of your snakes. Man, why do I always have to be around you troublesome people? Shikamaru asked the rhetorical question. Naruto chuckled while he gave Hinata some water. Oh, come on now. How about tomorrow I teach you all something good? Then the day after that, we'll go on our first mission. Would that put you in a good mood? Anko asked, eating some dango with her team. Naruto nodded with a grin on his face while Hinata seemed to smile. But Shikamaru just sighed. All right, time to go home, everyone. See you tomorrow, and be sure to eat your breakfast. You're going to need it, Enkoku as she sunshined away. Well, guys, I can't wait for our first mission. Aren't you glad we don't get D ranks? Naruto asked while Hinata slowly nodded and Shikamaru chuckled. I guess it would be a drag to handle that labor that civilians are too lazy to do themselves. Shikamaru answered until Naruto got a gleam in his eyes. So your family must make a majority of all the dank missions, right? Na asked and Shikamaru rolled his eyes. Very funny, Na. Well, I got to go home. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Shikamaru said to them. Everyone nodded and watched him leave. See you later, Hinata-chan. Naruto told her. Hinata waved goodbye to the blonde and she watched him leave. 2 days later, teammate was currently in front of the Hokage and Araka who had been handing out missions to people. Imagine their shock when Anko came up to them and said that they would be taking a C rank mission. Needless to say, but both of them were surprised. Anko, are you crazy? They're just genin. They can't take a C rank. You know they have to take D rank missions to familiarize themselves with each other. Aruka said while Anko pouted. Are you kidding me? Those do nothing for no one except give the civilians a day off of work. Besides teaching them teamwork out in the field is a much better job in my opinion. As for getting to know each other, the both of you know that Naruto was good friends with these two for the past 4 years. He was also friends with the others also. I don't think I need to test them on something they've had for 4 years. Besides, I know how good they are. Hinata is good for close combat. Shikamaru is good for long range and Naruto is the best wildcard as he can fulfill long range, close range, and mid-range. Hey, are perfectly balanced along with me. Tell you what, give us a C rank mission and if we fail, we take the D rank missions like you said, but if we succeed, we continue with the C ranks until we're good for the higher stuff. Enko suggested making Aruka drop his job. Sarutobi sighed and turned to see the 3 genin kids. Naruto-kun, what do you think of Hinata and Shikamaru? Sarutobi asked, making everyone turn to him. What's there to say, Gigi? Hinata-chan and Shikamaru are good friends of mine. Back in the academy, I tried with them. Ka, Choji, Sasaki, Shino, Ino, and Sakura. I know them and they know me. I trust them with my life. Dado, Naruto said, making Shikamaru smile while Hinata gave a small blush. Anko grinned like mad and patted Naruto's head. There you have it. So, do we get one? Anko asked, making Serbi sigh. All right, fine, Anko. The success of this C rank mission will determine if you take D ranks or not. The other Jonins seem to think that their teams are better off doing D ranks, but if you have so much confidence in your time, then I won't hold it against you. I'll give you this C rank mission. You will be escorting this document to Numa Nunkuni. I'm sure that's a good mission for you, for this document contains the necessary negotiations for a treaty. You are to deliver this document. Be wary that you will be sailing on a ship with a few other people, so protect the document from pirates, bandits, and the like. You'll leave in an hour, Serbi said as he handed the letter to Anko. All right, Gaki. Let's get going. We have a lot of ground to cover before he head to the port. So, let's get our asses in gear, Anko said, and everyone nodded as they left the room. Was that really a good idea, Hokage-sama? Yuruka asked, and Shirobi grinned while he smoked his pipe. It will be, honestly, Iruka. Anko has a point. I think it's time that we gave the genin harder challenges. They are nothing like when we were. When I was a child, the genin were doing C ranks and B rank missions. I think it's time it got back to that. Serbi said, and Iruka nodded. He did admit that they were more relaxed since nothing was going on, but that didn't mean they could slack off. Soon as they were talking, a Jonin bursted through the door and bowed. Hokage-sama. We have received a message from Kumogak. It is strictly confidential at the moment and is waiting for your approval on how to proceed. The Jonin said as Serbi rubbed the bridge of his nose. All right, send me the message immediately. The Sandaime Hokage said, and the Jonin handed him the letter. Iruka watched his Hoge open the letter and noticed the shocked look on his face and the pipe fall from his face. Hokage-sama, are you all right? Iruka asked while the Hokage hat shadowed Serbi's face. This has to be a joke, Shirobi said as he looked through the entire letter again. With Team 8, Anko and her team appeared in front of the gates of Konoha with their backpacks. All right then, let's get going. We can finally get away from this place for a bit and have some fun. Anko said with a smile while the other nodded. How far away is the port? Naruto asked, and Anko took out the map. It's about half a day's journey away. Now let's get going, Anko said as they looked over their things. Naruto had everything while Makata stayed around his neck. She had been shifting to all places from his neck, arm, and the inside of his jacket, but Na didn't mind at all. I'm ready, Naruto said. Me too, Shikamaru responded. I am ready to go also, Hinata said. And they all moved out ready to complete their first mission as well as first C rank mission.